welcome as people are joining our Zoom call this evening. We are delighted that you are here. I say we will give it just another moment or so to see if anyone else hops on our call. I know that there's still a few more people who will be joining us, but we are so thrilled that you are able to spend some time with us on this lovely December afternoon.
I'm excited to be here. Any time that I can come into the Victorian cottage over here on Maple Street, especially during Christmas time, you guys do a phenomenal job of decorating here. If you have not been in here during Christmas time, get over here because it is gorgeous.
That's always high praise considering. So we do spend I think this year I spent 4 days decorating the house, and sometimes I still don't feel like it's up to Victorian standards sometimes.
Well, more is more.
Yes. And it's one of the challenges of decorating here that I also have to let there be space for people to walk through. We don't actually live in these homes. So
the only part I don't like about decorating is the explosion of stuff that happens before as you're getting everything out of the boxes and you're putting it out. And because I know when I've been here before, when we were decorating, like the whole kitchen area is just, you can't walk because there's so much beautiful stuff.
Correct. Well, I think that we'll go ahead and get started. If you have any questions, you'll be able to put them in the chat, and we'll definitely have time for questions and answers at the end. But I will go ahead and once again, welcome you all to the back parlor of the Victorian Cottage. We're so glad that you're able to join myself. My name is Rae. I am the Education Collection Manager here, and I'm joined by the lovely Kim. And we are excited to take a look at the past Christmases and see what is familiar and what has fallen out of fashion. But I think the very first thing that we must do is pour our tea.
Absolutely. You picked out such a wonderful tea for us today, and it's cinnamon. It just reminds me of those cinnamon candies.
Yeah, so this is
it's wonderful.
The hot spice cinnamon tea from Harvey and Son. So this is an English brand, and I have the tin. If you can see the bright orange tin kind of in the foreground of the frame over here. It might be a little bit out of frame, but I promise you that it is very warm and spicy, and just kind of what you want on a lovely kind of dreary.
Yeah.
Today is the perfect day for tea.
Yes.
And then we, of course, also have some nibbles with here as well. So you might be able to see in our camera, we have, we're kind of doing a high tea. We have our table up high, and we'll talk a little bit more about that towards the end. But we have a smattering of dessert.
Yes. You always feel like if you're going to have something sweet, you should probably eat something like cheese and meat to balance it.
Yeah.
And then you can have 14 of the sugar plums.
Yeah. So we do have sugar plums on our plates. We have some Frango mints as well, and we'll talk a little bit more about those later. And then we also, I'm going to put one of the mints. And then we also have cranberry and raspberry or cranberry orange scones with a little bit of homemade whipped cream. So I'm going to set the place back over here, but I hope that you all have something equally as delightful on your plate, because this program is best with a cup of tea or your hot beverage of choice and other nibbles and snacks along the way.
Absolutely.
All right. So getting started, we are looking at specifically more of the decorations today in the past. And what is more iconic of a Christmas decoration than a Christmas tree? So we do have one of our trees in the background behind Kim. You can kind of see the lovely twinkling lights. And then we have our tabletop one is actually off to the side of us. But this is very much so a German tradition. So it originates like in the 16th century.
Oh, Tannenbaum.
Yes, and so that's a very popular Christmas carol that is actually set to a German folk song. So the words come from even earlier, and then I'm blanking on the gentleman's name. He sets it to a popular tune, and it's really going to be the German immigrants, specifically a lot of the German Lutheran immigrants. And I don't know if you know this, Lombard had quite a large population.
Really, truly. I mean,
Yes.
that's why even like Sacred Heart Parish, some of you people who've lived here in Lombard for a long time may have remembered German Fest because there were so many German immigrants in this area.
Yeah, and then just down the street from us and kind of in between us and Sacred Heart, we have St. John's Lutheran Church, which we look back at, you know, the parish rosters from the years, and it is all very German names at the very beginning. And so they would have had Christmas trees, you know, kind of from the beginning of Lombard's history. That would have been a tradition to see it
Absolutely
in people's windows. But it is really going to be Queen Victoria, that lovely woman who this era is named for, who's really going to kind of jumpstart the popularity of the Christmas tree.
Thanks to her husband.
Yes.
A German.
Yes, Prince Albert was German. And he is going to, you know, bring that kind of tradition from home, because I can't imagine. I mean, you know, moved 4 hours away from my parents at one point, and that was almost too far for me. I can't imagine, you know, moving from Germany to England and not bringing some of those home comforts with you.
Absolutely, because then you have that connection. You know that what you're doing, your family back home is doing the same thing, and it has that connection. So where we have connections on the internet and all this stuff, their connections, letter writing, but bringing traditions.
Exactly. But did you know that he actually wasn't the first one to have a tree in England?
Who was the first?
That would have been Queen Charlotte in 1800.
We will give it
She was also had German roots
moment
in
or
her.
so.
But
to see
the
if
reason that
anyone
we
else
associate it with Queen
hops on our
Victoria
call. I
is
know that
because at
there's
this
still
point,
a few
the
more
Victorian era is
people,
named for her because
who
anything
will
she
be
did,
joining
everyone
us.
else did.
But we are
And
so thrilled
really,
that you are able social media
to
for
spend
them
some
was
time
the
with us
Gazette,
on
the
this lovely
newspaper, and there
December
was a beautiful
afternoon.
illustration.
I'm excited to be here.
Of
Victorian
any
Albert
time
with the
that
children.
I can
It
come
was a
into the
beautiful
Victorian
drawing,
cottage
but
over here on
because
Maple
it was in the
Street,
newspaper,
especially during Christmas time.
everybody
You
wanted to
guys do
figure
a
out what she was
phenomenal
doing.
job
talk
of
about the
decorating
original
here.
influencer.
If you have not been
Yeah,
in
and
here during
she
Christmas time,
truly was.
get over here.
And
'cause it
even,
is
and sometimes
gorgeous.
though the Christmas trees look a little bit
That's
different
always
from the
high
Victorian
praise
era than what
considering.
we
So
think
we
of.
do spend.
So the image that we actually have
I think
on
this
the
year
screen
I spent
is
4
from Martin
days
Group, and this was
decorating the
found
house,
in
and
the
sometimes
Lombard
I still don't feel like
Hotel.
it's up
And
to
so
Victorian standards.
this
Sometimes
is going to kind of show what a little bit of a
And, you know, it's
stylized
one of the
Christmas tree
challenges
from
of
the
decorating
Victorian
here
era
that I
looks
also
like.
have
So
to,
it's got this
you know, let
fantastic
there be
like
space for people
fan
to walk through. We don't
topper.
actually
It's got
live in
like
these
almost tiers
homes.
rather than like
So,
branches
only
on
part I
it,
don't
but
like
it is
about
just
decorating
covered. And when they
is the
found this photo
explosion of
in
stuff
the
that
hotel
happens
when they were going through a few
as
years
you're
ago, and
getting
it's one of the
everything
great
out of the
examples from our
boxes
collection
and
of, you
putting
know,
it out.
kind of what
And
Christmas trees
because I know
used to
when I've
look
been
like
here
in the
before,
past.
you know,
we were
I remember
decorating,
from
like,
the
the whole
kid,
kitchen area
one
is
of
just,
my
you can't
friends,
walk.
they
Because
had
there's so
a
much
small
beautiful
version
stuff.
of that.
Correct.
And it was
Well,
just
I
so
think
fabulous
that we'll go
because
ahead
it actually
and get
moves
started.
because
If you
of
have
the
any
heat of the
questions,
candle.
you'll be able to put them
So
in the
that is
chat,
a
and we'll
great
definitely have
segue,
time for
actually.
questions
Whoops,
and
that was not
answers
getting
at
us
the end.
into
I will go ahead
as it
and, you know,
Did I
once
might
again,
have-
welcome you all
I think I
to
went one
the
too
back
far.
parlor of the Victorian cottage.
Yeah.
We're so
Candles
glad that you're able
versus
to join
lights.
myself. My name is Rae. I am the
So,
education collection
part
manager
of
here.
the splendor
And
of
I'm
a
joined
Christmas
by the
tree
lovely
and, you know, the
Kim.
splendor of the season
And we
is the
are
illumination. I
excited
mean, you
to
think about how many
take a
places,
look at
you know,
the
have Christmas lights
past
display. We're, you
Christmases
know,
and
100
see
feet from
what is
a
familiar
giant
and what
outdoor
has
one at
fallen out of
Laelacia
fashion. But I
Park.
think the very first
And they're
thing
fantastic.
that
And,
we
you know,
must do
light in the
is pour
darkness
our
just
tea.
helps to bring
Absolutely.
joy. You picked out such a
Yes, because
wonderful
goodness knows, especially those
tea
of
for
us
us
who, you know, are
today,
here
and
kind of
it's
in the
cinnamon. It
northern
just
hemisphere,
reminds me of
especially
those
in the northern
cinnamon
part of the
candies.
country.
Yeah,
Goodness
so
knows
this
the sun will
is
go down in
wonderful.
about an hour and a half.
hot
And so you're right,
cinnamon
having that
tea
kind of
from,
illumination is just gets you
Harvey
through the
and
very
Son.
long,
So this is
dark,
is
cold
an
nights.
English brand, and I have the tin.
But they
if you
used
can see the
to
bright orange
not have
tin kind of
electric
in the
lights.
foreground, and so they would put
actual
the
candles
frame over here. It
on
might be
their
a little bit out
trays.
of
Well,
frame,
and
but
we were
I
talking
promise
about
you
this a
that
little
it
bit
is
earlier with the
very
candles,
warm and
because,
spicy.
you know,
And just
today
kind of what
we think
you
of
want on a
Thanksgiving as the
lovely,
beginning of Christmas
you know,
season.
kind of dreary.
And
Yeah.
really
Today's the perfect day for
traditionally,
tea.
it was
Yes.
not
And
the
then
beginning
we,
of the
of course,
Christmas season.
also
It was the
have
beginning of Advent,
some
Yes,
nibbles
but the Christmas
with here
season
as
starts
well.
at the
So
fourth
you might be able to see it
Sunday
in our camera. We have,
right before.
we're kind of
So
doing
we like
a
to
high tea. We have our
put
table
away
up
the
high. We'll
turkey,
talk a little bit more
bring
about
out the
that towards
Christmas
the
tree.
end.
Sometimes
have a
not even in that
smattering
order. Sometimes it's
dessert.
tree first and
Yes.
then turkey.
You always feel like if
truly,
you're gonna have something but, sweet, you you know, should now probably that eat we something have like cheese and meat to
electric
balance it.
lights.
Yes.
LED. And then you can have
we have
14
artificial
of the
trees
sugar
too.
plums.
Yeah. Yeah.
that
So
are
we do have
fire
sugar plums
hazards.
on our
But
plate.
in that
We
day,
have,
when you're putting
some
candles on your
Frango mints
tree,
as
you
well,
wanted that
and
tree
we'll
to
talk
be
a little
as
bit more
fresh
about
as
those
possible.
later.
So
And
you
then
may
we
have only gotten your
also, I'm gonna
tree
put one of the mints.
Christmas Eve.
And then we also have
Yeah. And so
cranberry
luckily,
and
you're right. It wouldn't have been
raspberry
kind of
or
the
cranberry
tender
orange
that it
scones
was. And
with a
also
little
when we
bit
talk about them
of
lighting
homemade
the
whipped
candles on the
cream. So
tree,
I'm
they
gonna
are
set them
very small
placed
tapers. They're
back
maybe 3 inches
over here, but I
max,
hope that you all have
probably
something
closer to 2.
equally
And
as
they
delightful
would have a
on
bucket
your
of water
plate, because this
next to it,
program
and you're not leaving the
is
tree
best with a cup of tea
unattended.
or your
But
hot
they
beverage of
are
choice and
going to
other
also not
nibbles
like
and snacks
totally cover
along
the
the
tree. Like
way.
when we think of our Christmas
Absolutely.
lights today, they're
All
you
right,
know, I
so
put so many strands on my
getting
tree to
started,
just
we are
highly
looking
all
at
just
a rule
specifically
of
more of the
thumb, it's
decorations
100
today
lights
in
per
the
foot.
past. And
So
what is
if
more
I have a
iconic of a
7-foot tree,
Christmas
I have
decoration
700
than
lights on it.
a Christmas
you would
tree?
not have 700
So we do
candles
have
on your
one of our
tree.
trees
No,
in the
that little
background
fan on the
behind
top is
Kim. You can
really
kind of see the
whirring
lovely
around.
twinkling lights.
so
And then we have
it's
our
not quite as
tabletop
many.
one is
They
actually
do
off
have
to
the
the side of
water
us.
next to
But
it, and they're
this is very
standing,
much so
like
a
I said, they're never
German
leaving
tradition.
and they're also not.
So it
lighting
originates like in the
entirety.
16th
wasn't a
century.
decoration, it was an
Tannenbaum.
event.
Yes, and so that's
a very popular
they-
Christmas carol that
when
is
we
actually
start
set to
getting
a
electric
German
lights, though,
folk
'cause
song. So the
Christmas
words
lights are
come from
actually, I was
even
shocked to learn that they
earlier.
were
And
invented in
then I'm
1882.
blanking on the
Christmas lights
gentleman's
are
name. He
actually
sets it to a
older than this
popular
house that we're
tune.
in.
And it's
they
really
were
going to be the
so
German
incredibly
immigrants, specifically a lot of the German
that they
Lutheran
had rental
immigrants.
programs for
And
them.
I don't know if you know this,
So it
Lombard
was just
had
like, you
quite
know, you
a
wanted to
large
decorate,
population.
there's no way you Really, could afford it,
truly.
'cause
I
I
mean,
mean,
it's almost
that's
the
why
cost of a
even like
car.
Sacred
It was
Heart Parish, some of you
unbelievable.
people who've lived And here they in weren't really Lombard that for a long popular time may have until somebody remembered who German worked for Fest Edison
because there
took
were
'em
so
and
many
put
German
red, white, and
immigrants
blue
in
ones
this
on top of
area.
the
Yeah, and
building
then
where
just
they
down
had a
the
lot of
street from us, and
commuters.
kind of in between us
And
and
it
Sacred Heart,
brought
we have
joy
St.
for
John's
those
Lutheran
commuters.
Church, which
And then
we
it
look
slowly
back
began
at,
to
you
catch
know,
on.
the parish
and they were
rosters
using
and
it
years,
too,
and it
kind
is
of as a
all
gimmick to sell
very
electric
German names at the
because
very
people,
beginning.
and we
And
see this with
so
any sort
they
of
would have
new,
had Christmas
like,
trees, you know, kind
major
of from the
societal
beginning of
changing
Lombard's history. That
technology,
would
is
have
that
been
people are
a tradition
nervous
to
and,
see it
not always
in
early
people's
adapters. And
windows.
so they said, and
But
rightly so, that
it is
there were
really
definitely
going to
fire
be
hazards with electric
Queen
lights, too.
Victoria,
Probably a little bit less
that
than the
lovely
open
woman who this
flame,
era is
but
named for, who's
they were
really
still very
going
hot, and
to
so they were
kind of
trying to sell it
jumpstart
as
the
like
popularity of the
it's
Christmas
safer,
tree.
Thanks to her husband.
Yes,
and so
a
they
German.
really they start
yes,
you know,
Prince Albert
they, like you
was
said, they the rental
German.
programs, they eventually started
And
selling it where
he
you're able to
is
light,
going to, you know, bring
they
that
had the
kind of tradition
pre-strand
from home,
ones,
because
so
I
the
can't
first
imagine.
Christmas
I mean,
lights you had to
I,
put together
you know,
yourself too, which
moved 4 hours
I
away
had
from my
to be a
parents at
minor
one point,
electrician.
and that was
yes,
almost too far
it
for me. I
sounds like you're
can't
making a joke, but
imagine,
it's
you know,
very
moving
true.
from Germany to
And
England
I don't
and
know, have
not
you ever
bringing
tried
some
to
of
change
those
a
home
fuse on a
comforts
Well,
with you.
absolutely, because then you have that connection. You know that what you're
that is
doing,
the less, you know,
your family back
pain-inducing
home is doing
option
the same
I
thing, and it
have.
has that
Exactly.
And it
connection.
is,
So where we
you're
have
right, you don't need to be
connections
throwing
on
away,
the
but you can
internet and
imagine
all this stuff,
making an
their
entire,
connections,
like putting the
letter writing,
fuses in,
but
and
bringing
so once they
traditions.
get to the
Exactly. But did you
three-strand
know that he
option,
actually
because they were so
wasn't the first
expensive,
one to have
who
a tree in
did fix
England?
them?
yeah,
Oh, who was
exactly.
the
And so we
first?
start
That would have
seeing,
been Queen
once
Charlotte
you get
in
the pre-strand, the rental
1800.
programs, they
She was
just
also had German
explode
roots
with
in her.
popularity.
Well, you know
So,
what I think is kind of
but
funny?
the
In
reason
some
that
towns,
we
we almost
associate it
come
with
full
Queen
circle
Victoria is
because
because at this point,
now you
the
can
Victorian era is
pay
named for
somebody to
her
come and
because anything
decorate.
she
Mhm.
did,
And take it all
everyone
down.
else
So in a
did.
sense, you are And
back to a bunch of
really,
programs.
social media for them
but
was the
one of
Gazette,
my
the
favorite things
newspaper.
though is
And there
we have
was
on
a
the screen
beautiful
the image of those
illustration
are tin candle
of
holders, but they're
Victoria
the
and
tin
Albert with the
reflectors.
children.
And
It was a
so
beautiful
when you had
drawing,
those
but
less
because
amounts
it
of
was in the
candles or Christmas
newspaper,
lights,
That's one of the ways that you
everybody
could
wanted to
stretch
figure out
the
what she was
effect with
doing.
the
I mean, talk about the original
reflection, with
influencer.
either the tin holders or
Yeah,
with
and she
tinsel.
truly was.
And we were just,
And even,
okay,
and
when I think of
sometimes so the
tinsels, I always
Christmas
think
trees
of
look a
cats
little bit
eating 'em.
different from the Victorian era than what we think
Yeah,
of.
tinsel is
So
definitely, if you've
the
got
image that we
animals,
actually
maybe
have
not
on the
the most
screen
animal
is
friendly,
from
but
Martin Group, and this was
I always
found
get told
in
that I don't put
the
enough tinsel
Lombard
on the tree, and finally
Hotel.
this year,
And
because the
so
Victorians loved tinsel,
this
because it did the
is
same
going to kind of
refracting of
show
the
what
light.
a little bit of a
If you can still
stylized
see the
Christmas tree
tree
from the
for your
Victorian era
Victorian
looks like.
Christmas
So
tree,
it's
you do
got
not
this
put enough tinsel
fantastic
on.
like
Yeah,
fan
I was
topper.
telling
It's
Ray
got
earlier, one of my
like
favorite
almost
movies is
tiers
The Bishop's
rather than
Wife
like branches
with
on
Cary
it,
Grant
but it
and
is
Loretta
just
Young and
covered.
David
And
Niven.
when they found
And there
this
is a
photo
scene where
in
he's
the hotel
decorating
when
the
they were going
tree,
through a
and
few years
I
ago,
can't
and it's one of the
believe
great examples
how
from our
much
collection
tinsel
of,
was put
kind of
on
what
that
Christmas
tree that
trees
really you
used to look
cannot
like
see
in the
any
past.
I remember
anymore.
from a kid,
It's
one of my
impressive, and it's
friends,
just
they
they
had
are
a
using the
small
tinsel in addition
version
to
of
the
that,
reflection to be
and
kind
it
of
was
that like
just so
icicle,
fabulous because it
bring
actually
in
moves
some
because of the
more kind
heat
of
of
the
the
outside in, and
candles.
tinsel is
Yes.
actually
So that is a
fairly
great
old,
segue,
as
actually.
well
Whoops,
as
that was not
decorations go. It was
getting
originally
us
made from metal, so
into.
you had someone
Oh,
sitting
as
there
it.
like
I
hand
might
cutting
have.
because it was
Oh, I think I
invented
went one too
in
far.
Nuremberg, Germany in 1610.
Candles versus
Wow,
lights.
it's been around for a long time.
So
Now, I know
part
a
of the
beautiful
splendor
little
of a
folk
Christmas
tale,
tree,
and I don't know if
the
you're
splendor of
familiar
the
with this
season
one, and it
is
has
the
to do with
illumination. I mean, you
tinsel.
think about how many places,
It's a
have
story,
Christmas
it's
lights displayed.
many
We're,
different
100 feet
variations
from
throughout
a
Europe, but the
giant
one that I
outdoor
really
one
like
at
is there was
Lalatia Park.
a poor widow
And they're
with a couple of
fantastic.
children,
And
and they had a house light with a
in the
dirt floor.
darkness
Just
and
one
helps
day,
to bring
a
joy.
pine cone rolls into their
Yes,
house,
because
and
goodness
a
knows,
tree
especially
grows
those of
in
us
their
who, are
house.
here kind of in the northern
And
hemisphere,
they are
especially
sad because they
in the
cannot
northern
put
part of
any
the country.
tinsel or
Goodness
anything
knows
on the
the
tree
sun
to
will go down
decorate
in
it,
about an hour,
and some
hour and a half.
spiders
And so you're
overheard.
right, having that kind of
And during the
illumination
night
is
on Christmas
just gets you
Eve,
through the
they
very long, dark,
did
cold
webbing
nights.
all
Um,
over the tree.
But they used
Aw.
to
And in
not
the
have
morning,
electric
when the
lights.
sunlight
And
hit
so they would put
the webbing,
actual
it turned
candles
silver and gold and
on their
provided a
trays.
Well, and we were talking
for
about this a
their-
little
for their
bit
families.
earlier with
So
the candles.
sweet.
So
Because,
today, there are
today,
still
we
some
think of
cultures
Mhm.
that make sure
Thanksgiving
that they
as the
hang
beginning
a
of
spider
Christmas
on their
season.
trees.
Yes.
For good
And
fortune.
I say
really
I hadn't heard,
traditionally, it
um,
was
All of my trees,
not
I
the
have
beginning of the
13 trees at
Christmas
home.
season. It was the beginning
Um,
of
all of my
Advent,
trees have a
yes,
spider
but the
on 'em.
Christmas season
I
starts
love
at the
that.
fourth Sunday.
And with your spider, let's
right
see,
before.
it'll pop up. There it goes.
So
Is
we
it's just
like to
one style of ornaments.
put away the turkey,
And so,
bring out the
you put the
Christmas tree.
tinsel on, you might
Sometimes
be thinking,
not
well, you
even
don't
in
need
that
any
order.
ornaments on
Sometimes
your
it's the tree
tree.
first
But
and
no,
then
no, no.
turkey.
Truly,
You cover your tree in
truly,
ornaments and then
but,
tinsel.
now that we
Yes.
have
And so the Victorian,
electric
we actually,
lights,
this is the time where we
LED,
start seeing kind of
we
a
have artificial
shift.
trees
And so a lot of the
too,
early Christmas trees
that
are
aren't
going to be
fire
the
hazards.
handmade
But
ornaments that
in
you put on your
that
tree.
day,
And a lot
when
of
you were
them
putting
are going to
candles
be
on
made
your
from
tree,
paper. So you have
wanted
your
that tree to be
paper
as fresh
fans,
as
your paper
possible.
chains.
So you may
They
have
would
only gotten
decorate
your
pine
tree
cones. They're going
Christmas
to
Yeah, and so
paint
luckily you're right, it
walnuts,
wouldn't have been
gold,
kind of
and
the
put
tinder
those on the tree.
that it was.
And
And
it
also
has
when
a
we talk
very,
about them lighting the
homemade,
candles on the
very
tree, they are a
cottage
very
kind
small
of
tapers.
feel
They're maybe
to it.
3 inches max.
Something
maybe.
special about that.
Probably
Yeah.
closer to
That
2.
simplicity. It's
And
just
they would
beautiful.
have a
And
bucket of water.
it's the same kind of
next
thing
to
where,
it,
you
and you're
think
not
about,
leaving the
you
tree
have
unattended.
the
But
handmade
they
ornaments
are going
that
to also not like
that you make in
totally
elementary
cover the
school
tree.
or
Like when we think of
preschool,
our
or that your
Christmas lights
grandchildren
today,
or children make, and that you
they're,
cover in
I
your
put so
tree.
many
Oh,
strands
yeah.
on my
And
tree
that's
to
the same
just
kind
I
of
always
idea.
have
yeah.
a rule of thumb. It's that
100
I made
lights per foot.
I was working here for a while.
So if I have a
And
7
it's
foot
just
tree, I have
styrofoam balls.
700 lights on
Seriously.
it.
Mhm.
You would not have 700
How
candles
1970s
on your
and stuff,
tree.
but
No,
actually
that
it's
little
even
fan on the
older
top
than
would be
that.
really
And just
whirling
putting like
around.
lots of lace and
And
ribbons.
so
Mhm.
Very
it's not quite as
Victorian.
many.
Yes.
Ribbons,
You have
ribbons,
the water
ribbons.
is next to it,
Yes.
and they're
And so, yeah,
standing.
that they
Like I
would
said,
have
they're
all
never
of those
leaving
decorating
it
their
alone.
trees.
And they're also
And then we
not
start to
lighting it
kind
the
of
entire night.
It
get a little
wasn't
bit of a
decoration,
shift
it was an event.
away
Yes.
from not
And so
necessarily entirely
they-
throwing out all the handmade
when we start
ornaments, because they
getting
obviously
electric
have
lights,
great
though, 'cause
sentimental
Christmas
value.
lights are
But we start
actually- I
seeing
was shocked
people
learn that they're invented in
purchasing
1882. Christmas
ornaments.
lights are actually
Specific,
older
one of the
than
ones
this
that I
house
wanted to
that
talk
we're
about
in.
today is
And
specifically
They
the
were
glass
so
hand blown
incredibly
ornaments.
I
expensive.
love
Mhm.
glass
But they
ornaments.
had
I'm
rental
afraid
programs
of
for
glass
Yeah.
ornaments.
So
Because
it
they're
was just
so-
like, you know,
they're so
you wanted to
special.
decorate,
They're
there
so
was no way you
precious.
could afford it because it was
Yes.
almost
And
the cost of a
trying
car. It was
to, especially some of
unbelievable.
those old
And they weren't really
antique
that
ones,
popular
Mhm.
until
to try to
somebody
keep them,
who
and
worked for
especially the
Edison
ones where they
took
have
'em and
color on
put
the
red, white, and
inside,
blue ones
Yes.
on top
like
of
the
the
mercury
building
glass,
where they
they're
had a lot of
so
commuters.
fragile.
And
And
so
it brought joy
one of
to
those
those
glass point
commuters,
traditions is
and then it
the
slowly
German,
began to
was
catch on.
Yeah, and they were
Kugel,
using it too,
and so
kind
that
of as a
is
gimmick
the
to sell
traditional
electric
German
lights,
Christmas ornaments,
because
and so that's,
people,
the
you know, and
baubles
we
that
see
we
this
have the
with any
picture
sort
of
of new,
on,
you know,
the right
major
hand of the screen, we've got a
societal
paper
changing
cone on
technology, is
one
that
side and
people
then
are
the
nervous
glass
and, you know,
ornament
not always
on
early
the other,
adapters,
and
so
they
they
would
said,
have those kind of
and
iconic
rightly so, that
ridges,
there were
and they would be
definitely fire
blown
hazards with
in
electric lights
glassmakers'
too.
shops,
Probably a
and
little bit
they
less than the open
would
flame,
start to
Yeah.
be
but
imported
they were still very
slowly
hot, and
over
so they
here,
were
and we
trying to
start
sell
seeing
it as
those
like
replace
It's
some of like the
safe,
paper
it's
chains,
safer,
as well
and so
throughout,
they really, they start,
you know,
you
kind of
know,
our Christmas
like
tree.
you said, they the rental
And they
programs, they
are definitely
eventually
very
start selling
popular,
them
but
to
like
be
you
able
said,
to
very
light,
fragile.
I like the
they
little
had the
cones because
pre-strand
then you
ones,
could
'cause
like
the
put
first
little
Christmas
goodies in
lights,
them too.
you had to put
That
together
was part of
yourself
their
too,
purpose, and
which
so you used
I
to
mean,
also
I had to be
decorate
a
your
minor
Christmas tree with some of the
electrician.
Christmas
yes,
presents too.
you
Not maybe
it
like
sounds
the
like you're
big
making a joke,
ones
but
that would
that's
like cause the
very
entire tree to fall
absolutely.
over.
And
But you
I
would
don't know, have
definitely
you ever tried
sometimes
to
put the
change the
sweets
fuse
and
on
the
like a
nuts
modern
Yeah,
inside
the
of
little
them.
no,
Absolutely.
And they were, you know, definitely very
the less, you
festive.
know,
And you know,
pain-inducing
kind of the
option
centerpiece
I
for any
have.
of the room.
And it
But
is,
as you said with the
you're right, they're made to be
Victorians,
thrown away, but
more
if you could
is more.
imagine
There is
making
more
an
is more. So the
entire,
Christmas
like,
tree
putting the
wasn't the
fuses in,
only
and so
greenery they
once
actually
they get
had
to the
in
pre-strand
their
option,
home.
Because they were
So
so
they're
expensive.
going
And you
to
did fix
have
that.
a couple of different
exactly.
varieties.
And so we start seeing
the
once we get the
Victorians
pre-strand,
at
the
this
rental
point
programs,
really
they
want to
just
bring the
explode
outside
with
in.
popularity.
So you know what I think
I
is
mean,
kind
you
of
think
funny?
about
And
the
sometimes we've almost come
botanical
full circle,
gardens start really
because
becoming popular
now
during this
you
time.
can pay
You know, a
somebody to
lot of
come and
places have just
decorate
greenhouses
and take
and
it all
hot
down. So in a
houses,
sense, you are
you know,
back
on their
to a rental
property if they're
program.
wealthy enough, and
But
they just
probably
want to
one of my
continue
favorite
that
things though
throughout the
is we
season,
have on the screen the
especially
image
because
of
here in
those
Illinois,
are tin
where
candle
we are
holders, but they're
located,
the
they
tin
would not have had a lot of
reflectors.
green
And so
outside
when you
during
have
this time of
less
year.
amounts of candles
So
or Christmas
in
lights,
my home,
that's one of the
I
ways that
know
you
that,
could
you know, especially this
stretch
time of
the
year,
effect
you have to
with
shut your
the
windows. You shut your
reflection
doors.
with
You
either the
don't get
tin
that
holders
freshness
or
in the
with
house.
tinsel.
Yes.
I mean, there's times when I purposely make my
okay, when
wood
I think of
stove
tinsels,
too
I always think of
hot
cats
so that I
eating
can
them.
open the window. 'Cause I love
Yeah,
that
tinsel is
feeling
definitely,
of
if you've
that
got
cool
animals, maybe
freshness from
not the most
outside,
animal
but the
friendly,
warmth
but
of the fire.
I always get
And
told that I
part
don't
of
put
that,
enough
though, is
tinsel
that
on the tree, and
freshness,
finally this year,
even from
because
the
the
smells
Victorians
of the
loved tinsel, because it
evergreens.
did the
Yes.
same
And
refracting of
that
the
is just a
light.
way of kind of
If you can still see the
making
tree
that
for your
season where you're
Victorian
so
Christmas
shut
tree,
in
you did not put enough
a little
tinsel
bit more
on.
bearable.
Yeah.
Yes, in fact, we
I
even
was
here,
telling Ray
because
earlier,
especially
one of
with
my
this being a
favorite
historic
movies is
home, we don't
The
open the
Bishop's
windows
Wife
as much as you
with
would
Cary
even like a
Grant and
residential
Loretta
home.
Young and David
We do
Niven.
bring in,
And there is
we
a
pick up
scene
some
where
live
he's
evergreens and put those
decorating
in
the
strategic
tree,
places
and
throughout the
I
home
can't
to help bring
believe
in
how
that
much
freshness even
tinsel
here. And
was
so,
put on that
you know,
tree that
they,
really
like you said,
cannot
it's,
see
you know,
any
this
of the
idea with
greenery
holly
anymore.
and
evergreens that
It's
it's domestic
impressive, and it's
happiness,
just
and
they
so
are
you want your
using the
hearth to
tinsel
be
in addition to the reflection to
welcoming
be kind of that
and
like
happy,
icicle,
and
Yeah.
your home to just
bring
be
in
jolly and
some
bright
more
like
of
this
kind of the
season.
outside in.
And it also
tinsel is
has this
actually
idea
fairly
of,
old,
you know,
as
return
well
to
as
spring
decorations go. It was
and, you
originally
know,
made from metal,
rebirth,
so you had
'cause
someone sitting
absolutely.
there like,
you know, when we do look
hand
outside this
cutting,
time of
because
year,
it was
it is
invented
the only
in
green.
Nuremberg,
Once we start
Germany
getting snow,
in
we do actually still see a
1610.
little bit of green on the grass
Wow, that's
this
it's been
particular
around for a
year.
long time.
But it is that
Now, I
idea
know
that, you know,
a
with the
beautiful little
calendar year
folk
and the
tale,
cycle of
and
the
I don't know
seasons
if you're
that,
familiar with
you know,
this
we are in
one,
the
and it has
long,
to
dark
do with
night, but that the
tinsel.
sun and spring will
It's a
coming
story.
back.
It's
Now,
many different
are
variations
you
throughout
familiar though
Europe,
with
but the one that I really
welcome
like is
rings?
there was
Have you heard of
a
those at
poor
Christmas
widow
time?
with a couple of
No.
children, and they had a house with a dirt
You
floor.
have, just by
And one
another
day,
name.
a pine
A
cone
wreath?
rolls
A
into their
wreath.
house, and a
I
tree
knew you were a
grows
smart
in
one. I
their
knew you were the right
house.
person and
And
invite.
they
But
are
yeah, they
sad
used
because
to,
they
we
cannot
think
put
of
any
all,
tinsel or
our
anything on the
wreaths, our
tree to
evergreen wreaths that
decorate
go
it,
on the
and
door.
some
And so
spiders
they would,
overheard. And
create
during the
these to
night
be a
on Christmas
welcoming,
Eve,
the
they
first thing that you see as you come
did
into
webbing
someone's home
all
as you
over the
are entering during the
tree.
holiday
And in
season.
the
So I
morning,
will make
when
a
the
confession.
sunlight
On my
hit
door,
It
the
is an
webbing,
artificial
they
reed,
turned
but
to
I love those
silver and
little
gold
sticks
and
that smell
provided a
like
financial
pine, and I tuck it in
for
there.
for the
Because I didn't like every
family.
time I open the
So
door, the
sweet.
needle. So
Beautiful.
today, there are still some
So, a
cultures
big one,
that
but
make
with the
sure
good
that
smell.
they
As,
hang a
yes,
spider
you know,
on
that
their
is
trees
definitely,
for good fortune.
Yeah,
Honestly, I
that is
hadn't
something that you
heard,
do have to
um,
balance
all of my
with,
trees-
you know,
I have
the
13 trees at
lovely,
home.
unlike a
Um,
tree where
all
a
of
live
my
tree that you
trees
can
have a
water,
spider on 'em.
you can't really water
I
a
love
wreath, but
that.
they
And
would
with your
decorate it
spider,
with,
let's
you know,
see if
the
it'll pop
ribbons,
up. There
they
it
would put
goes.
in holly
Is
and
It's
pine
just one
cones,
style of
and, you know,
ornaments.
red
And
berries,
so,
and really just
you know,
have
you
it
put the
be kind of
tinsel on, you
first
might
thing
be
you
thinking,
would
well, you
see as
don't need
someone
any
comes into
ornaments
your
on your
home,
tree.
and
But
that
no,
way
no,
they
no.
would know
You
that they are
cover your tree in
welcome and get
ornaments
that
and then
that
tinsel.
scent of
Yes.
pine
And so
be
the
welcomed
Victorian, we
inside.
actually, this is the time where
And
we
then the
start
other
seeing
one
kind of a
is the
shift.
kissing bough.
And so a lot of the
Ooh.
early Christmas trees are going to be the
Now,
handmade ornaments
a
that you put
kissing
on your
bough is a
tree.
little
And a
bit
lot of
different
them
than mistletoe.
are going to be made from
And it
paper.
actually
So you have your
precedes
paper
mistletoe. So what they would
fans,
do
your
is they
paper
would have kind
chains.
of, I guess,
They
like
would
two
decorate
embroidery
pine
hoops
cones. They're
almost,
going
and they would
to,
decorate those, and then
you
they
know,
would cross
paint
them,
walnuts
making kind of a
gold and
sphere.
put those on the
And they
tree.
would,
And it has
or
a very,
at least
you know,
two, if not
homemade,
sometimes
very
four, to make it even
cottage
more
kind of
full.
feel
You know,
to
covered
it.
with
There's something special about
you know,
that.
Yeah,
holly
That
and
simplicity. It's just
more
beautiful.
evergreens and,
you know, it's the same kind of thing
mistletoe
where, you know, you think
and
about, you know, you
rosemary
have
and
the handmade ornaments
just
that
a lot of
you know,
that you make in elementary school or
you know, kind of just
preschool
like
or that
a
your
bunch of, like,
grandchildren
good
or
smelling
children make
herbs
that
that
you
you still
cover in
had
your
in
tree.
the
Oh,
area.
yeah.
And
And
that same kind of
they would also
idea.
have
I even
fruits and
brought an
berries
ornament
off there.
that I
And
made
the
while
idea
I
was
was
that you would
working
actually
here
go
for a
up
while.
and you would
And
take a
it's
berry
just
off and you would
styrofoam
get a
balls.
kiss.
Seriously.
Mhm. And once the berries were gone,
You know how
so were all the
1970s and stuff,
kisses.
but actually
So
it's
you wanted
even
to make
older than
sure that you were
Yeah,
one of
and
the
just
young
putting like
berries.
lots of lace and
Exactly.
ribbons,
Mhm.
very
But
Victorian.
eventually that
ribbons,
is going
ribbons,
to
ribbons.
kind of
Is how,
start
yes.
to
And so, yeah, that they would
switch a
have
little
all
bit,
of
we
those decorating their
think,
trees.
into kind
And
of
then
the
we start
mistletoe
to
tradition,
kind of
that the kissing
get a
bows
little
become
bit of
a
a
little less
shift
elaborate,
away
that the
from
mistletoe
not
is there, and so
necessarily
it turns
entirely
into
throwing
you
out all the
hang
handmade
mistletoe.
ornaments because they
And when
obviously
you're
have
with
great
someone under there,
sentimental
you get a
value.
kiss either
But
on
we
the
start
cheek or on
seeing
the lips if
people
they're
purchasing
Mistletoe is an air plant.
ornaments.
It doesn't need
Specific, one
Yeah,
of the ones
it
that I
just
want to
grows
talk about
kind
today
of
is
like on
specifically the
other
glass
trees, and you just
hand-blown
kind of look
ornaments.
for
I
this kind of
love
weird ball
glass
at the
ornaments.
top.
I'm
And
afraid
you can
of
pull it
glass
down and stuff, but
ornaments
it is an
because
interesting
you're
plant.
so
They're so special.
I wish we could get
They're
so
so
precious
precious around here. 'Cause
Yes.
everybody's been
and
spray painted.
trying to, especially some of
not
those
as nice, but
old
it's really kind
antique
of a cool
ones.
plant.
Mhm.
But you know,
Try to
this whole
keep them,
talk
and
about
especially the ones where
kissing
they have
bows
color on the
and all that stuff.
inside.
You know what it really
Yes.
makes me want?
Like the mercury glass, they're
a
so
ball. We should have a
fragile.
ball.
And so the one of those glass blowing traditions
you
is
know, it's been a
the
very
German
long time since
there's
there's
been a
been
good Victorian
Kugel
Yes,
era ball.
and so
yes,
that
we
is
need a
the
ball.
traditional
dressed
German
up
Christmas
and
ornaments. And so
I need
that's
more excuses
you know,
to
the
wear my
baubles that we
Victorian
have the
outfit.
picture
Honestly,
of
I don't get a chance to
on
wear it
the
enough.
right
We're just
hand
gonna
of
have
the
to go
screen. We've
and
got a
watch a
paper
bunch of
cone
Jane
on one
Austen
side and then
movies.
the glass ornament on
But
the other.
you know,
And
it's
they
kind of
would have those
interesting
kind of
that,
iconic
you know, we're not
ridges and they would be
entirely
blown
sure,
in glassmakers
like,
shops and
if
they
there's any earlier
would start to
references,
be
'cause so
imported
by the, like,
slowly
17th
over here, and we
century, there
start
is
seeing
a
those
poem,
replace some of
by
like the
Robert
paper
Herrick,
chains
and he
as
says,
well throughout
the poem is called
you know, kind of our
Ceremony
Christmas
upon
tree.
Candlemas Eve.
And they're
And
definitely
this
very
was the day
popular,
that
but
the
like you said,
Christmas
very fragile.
greenery was actually
I like the little
removed.
cones because then you could
And
like
the
put
first
little
line
goodies in
is
them, too.
down with the
That was
rosemary,
part of their
and so
purpose.
down
And so
with the
you used
vase
to also
and
decorate your
mistletoe.
Christmas tree with some
And
of the
so this is
Christmas
the
presents
first
too.
written,
Not maybe like the
account
big
of
ones that would
mistletoe
like
being
cause the entire tree to
associated
fall
with,
over.
Yeah.
Christmas,
but you
and
would
so,
definitely sometimes
you know,
put the
there's
sweets
not
and the nuts
a
inside
consensus
of
of whether or
them.
not any
Absolutely.
earlier
And they
references
were,
just haven't
you know,
survived,
definitely
or
very
if this is
festive.
kind of when it really became
And you know, kind of
popular.
the
So
centerpiece for
it's
any
interesting
of the
to
room.
see how, you know,
But as you
kind
said
of,
with the Victorians,
yeah, the
more
traditions
is
that
more.
we
there is more.
I feel
is
like have
more.
been
So the Christmas
established
tree
for
wasn't the
forever
only
really
greenery they actually had
you know,
in
haven't
their
necessarily been
home.
around
So they're
quite as
going
long as we
to
think. They've still been
have
around
a couple
while,
of
but
different
I was just
varieties.
telling a
And
tour that
so
came through earlier
the
that the Victorian
Victorians
era is
at
not
this
actually
point
as
really
long
want to go
bring
as we
the outside
truth.
in.
So it's,
And when you think about the
definitely,
botanical gardens,
it
start
has a
really
lot more
becoming
influence on
popular
us than I
during
think
this
a
time.
lot of people realize.
You know, a lot of
And then of
places have
course,
just
the meaning of
greenhouses and
mistletoe,
hot
when you look at
houses,
flower meeting is,
on their property
romance.
if they're wealthy enough, and
Now,
they just want to continue that.
oh, and
throughout
there's
the
even
season.
more, there's even more, so if
Especially
you're
because
looking
here
for
in
what
Illinois,
mistletoe looks
where
like,
we are located,
that
they would not have
is
had a
what
lot
it
of
looks
green
like.
outside during this time of year.
Absolutely. So in my home, I know that,
Now-
especially at this time of year,
Nope,
you have
I-
to shut
did
your
I
windows.
think I went
You're
one.
shutting
Mhm.
your doors. You don't
There
get
we go.
that
Stockings
freshness
hung
in the house.
with care.
I mean, there's
Now,
times when
you might
I
be able to see
purposely
we are
make my
currently
wood
sitting in
stove
front of
too
our
hot
hearth,
so that I
and
can
behind
open
us
the
we
window,
have
because I
our
love that
lovely
feeling of that
stockings
cool
hanging
freshness from
by the
outside, but
chimney
the
with
warmth of the
care.
fire.
Now,
And
With care so
part
they
of
don't
that
catch on
though is
fire.
that freshness.
yes, I will say that
even from the
this
smells of
hearth
the
does not get a
evergreens.
fire
Yes.
anymore.
And that is
I
just a
don't know the
way of
last
kind
time
of
this chimney was
making
cleaned out, and
that
so that's not a
season
risk
where you're
that
so
any of us
shut
here at the
in
Historical
Well,
Society
a
want to
little
take.
bit more
One of the
bearable.
things I
Yes,
thought
in
was
fact,
just
we even
fascinating
here,
is that when
because
they were
especially with this being a
redoing
historic
this whole
home, we don't
house
open the
for the
windows as
Historical
much as we
Society,
would even
that
like a
was behind a
residential home.
wall.
We do bring
They
in,
uncovered
we
it,
pick
and
up
when
some
you
live
look at it and you
evergreens
go,
and put those in
why
strategic
would they
places throughout the
cover
home to
it?
help bring
Well,
in
part of it is because
that
you get the
freshness even
downdraft
here.
if
And
you're not
so,
using it.
you know,
So it
they,
was-
like you
made
said,
everything
it's, you know, this
cold,
idea
but
with
it's
holly and
absolutely
evergreens that
gorgeous.
it's
Yes, and you can see
domestic
more
happiness.
detailing
And
of it
so you
on
want your
the,
hearth to be
the image that we have here. So
welcoming
that
and
is our hearth
happy and
right behind
your home
us.
to just be
Jolly and
but
bright like this
stockings, you know,
season.
today we think
And-
about doing
and it also
stockings
has this
either.
idea
I know some
of,
people who
you
do
know,
them on
return to
Christmas
spring
Eve, Christmas
and,
morning.
you know, rebirth.
But traditionally they
'cause
were done
Absolutely.
on
you
December
know,
6th.
when we do
which
look
was
outside this
Saint
time of year,
Nicholas.
it is the
Yeah,
only
Saint
green,
Nicholas Day.
once we start getting
And
snow, we
it's a
do
really
actually still see a
interesting
little bit of green on the
story, you
grass
know,
at this
Saint
particular
Nick is
year.
sometimes better known
But it is that
as
idea
Santa
that, you know,
Claus.
with the
And
calendar
so
year and the
he
cycle of the
is
seasons
going
that,
to be a saint
you know,
out
we
of
are in the
Turkey.
long, dark night,
And the
but that
reason that
sun
they
in
Bishop.
spring
oh,
will
you're
be
right, he was
coming
the
back.
bishop.
Yeah.
Bishop, yeah, so he
Are you
was
familiar,
definitely
though,
high
with
up in the
welcome rings? Have
Catholic.
you heard of those at Christmas time?
Oh.
Why am I Catholic Church? That's the
You
word.
have,
Most people
just
don't
by
know he
another
decked
name.
somebody for saying
A
a
wreath?
heresy.
A wreath.
So
Because I
we
knew
have
you were a
temple
smart one. I knew
too.
you were the right
And
person
you know,
to
he
invite.
didn't
So yeah,
necessarily
they used to
you know, we
want
think
recognition
of,
for the
you know,
things
our
that he
wreaths
did
are
either.
evergreen
So
wreaths
one
that
of the
go on the
stories,
door. And so
you
they
know,
would
where we get stockings from, he
create
actually
these to
didn't
be
want
a
people to know
welcoming,
this
you know, the
about
first
him.
thing that you see
And
as you come
so
into
he heard
someone's
tale
home as you
of
are entering
a
during the holiday
gentleman who had
season.
3
So I will
daughters
make
and
a
he couldn't
confession.
afford their
On my
dowries.
door,
No
it
dowry,
is an
yeah.
And at
artificial
the
wreath,
time,
but I love those
He's
little
gonna sell 'em
sticks
to
that
slavery.
smell. like
Slavery, I
honey,
saw
and
one
hook
source
it
that
in
said
there.
prostitution.
Because I didn't like
So,
every time I
you
opened
know,
the
it's
door,
not
the
so
needles
much
would
of
fall.
woe is me, I won't get married,
So
which
a
sometimes
big one,
people
but with
associate
the
that.
good
It was a
smell.
very dire Yes, situation.
You know, that is
For
definitely
these young girls. And so the
yeah,
legend
that
goes
is
that they
something
had
that you
their
do have to
shoes sitting
balance
out by the
with,
window.
you know,
The lovely,
and on
unlike
one
a
night
tree where
he
a
went
live
and
tree that you
dropped
can
a
water.
solid
You can't
gold
really
ball
water a
into each
wreath,
of their
but,
shoes.
they
And
would
they
decorate
were
it
able
with,
to,
you know,
afford
the
dowries and
ribbons. They would put
therefore,
in
you know, avoid this
holly
very kind of
and
horrific
pine
fate.
cones.
And because
you
it
know,
was a
red
gold
berries, and
ball,
really just have it be kind of the
that's kind of
first
how
thing
the
you would
gifting of
see as someone comes
oranges
into your home.
also.
And that way
Exactly.
they would know
A
that they
lot
are
of
welcome and get
the
that
favorite
that
would be to
scent
reach
of
all the way down
pine
to the
and be
toe
welcome and pull out the
inside
giant orange that you would get.
And then the other one
Because,
is
back
the
and back
kissing
then, I
bough.
mean, we think of oranges. Oh, yeah, we just go to the grocery store and get
Now,
oranges. But they
a
were kind
kissing
of a
bough
rare,
is a little bit different than
Yeah.
mistletoe.
thing back then,
And
so
it actually
was, very
precedes
special to get an
mistletoe.
orange.
So what
It
they
was
would do
definitely a
is
once
they
a
would
year tree,
have
'cause
kind of,
goodness knows
I guess like
citrus
2
doesn't
embroidery
necessarily
hoops
grow on trees, at
almost,
least
and they
not
would
around
decorate
here.
those, and then
Yeah,
they would
and not
cross
in
them,
England.
making kind of a
No, so they would
sphere.
have to be imported,
And they
so
would,
we
or
know,
in at least 2, if not
by
sometimes
the
4 to make it
Victorian
even
era,
more
this is a
full,
fairly
you know,
well
covered
established
with
tradition.
Now, they
you
would have
know,
actually been putting
holly
out their actual
and,
stockings.
more
So
evergreens
they look
and
a little bit different than the
mistletoe
very nice
and
stylized
Well,
ones.
some kids even, they would hang
And
them on their bed,
you know,
too.
just this a lot
So
of
think about that. Some person you don't
you know,
even
kind of
know,
just like
like,
a bunch
going
of
into your
like good
bedroom at
smelling
night to put
herbs that
something in
you
your
still
socks.
had
That's
in
a
the
little
area.
weird.
And
hopefully they are
they
clean
would also have
socks
fruits
because,
and berries
goodness
off
knows
there.
that you didn't have many
And the
pairs to
idea
choose
was that
from,
you would
and so
actually
hopefully
go
you're
up
choosing
and
the
you
best
would
one
get
that has
berry off.
all of
And
the
you would
I
get a
bet
kiss.
they repaired them
And
before
once the
Christmas.
berries were gone, so were all
sitting
the
next to the
kisses.
fire.
So you wanted to
But,
make sure that you were
yeah,
one of the
of course
have
of
Clement
berries.
Moore.
Exactly.
Is going to
But
write
eventually
the
that is
iconic
going
poem, the
to
night, 'twas the
kind of
night before
start
Christmas,
to,
where he makes that mention of
switch a
stockings
little
hung
bit,
by
we
the chimney with
think,
care.
into kind of the
And,
mistletoe
you know, that
tradition,
even
that the kissing
further
vows become
cements
a
this
little less
as a holiday
elaborate,
tradition,
that the mistletoe
for
is there,
all
and
of
so
us.
it
And
turns
so
into you
it's,
hang mistletoe.
a very
And when you're with
iconic
someone
part of
under there, you get a
decorating
kiss either on the cheek or
for
on the lips
Christmas
if
that it
they're
doesn't quite
Mistletoe
feel
is
like
an air
Christmas
plant.
unless
It
you
doesn't
have
need,
stockings
so it
up
just grows
somewhere
kind of like on
in your
other
house.
trees, and you
Absolutely.
can just kind of look for this
Wow.
kind of weird
Right.
ball at the top, and you
Mhm.
can pull it down
And
and
other
stuff, but
fun
it is an interesting
traditions
plant.
is the Christmas
I wish we
cracker.
could get
I've
fresh
never
mistletoe
done a
around here, 'cause
Christmas
everything has
cracker.
been spray
Really?
painted, and it's
Mhm.
truly, I have
Not-
never
not
done
as
one.
nice,
You
but
have
it's really kind of
13
a cool
Christmas trees
plant.
in your home
But
and
you
you've
know, this
never
whole
done a
talk
Christmas
about
cracker?
the
I'm not
kissing
English.
bows and all
That
this
is
stuff.
very
You know, it
true.
makes me
I'm more
laugh.
German.
A
But
ball.
no,
We should have
yeah,
a ball. I've just never, it was never part of the
Yeah,
tradition
you know, and
in
it's been
my
a very
home.
long time since there's been a good
Growing up,
Victorian
to have
era
yes,
ball
yes,
and
right.
just
I've
a
always,
ball.
get
you know,
dressed
seen them,
up and
in
I need
movies
more
and,
excuses to wear my
Christmas
Victorian outfit
Absolutely
anyway. I don't get a
right.
chance to
you
wear it
actually,
enough.
we're just gonna have to
a
go and
couple.
watch a
I
bunch of Jane
did, so
Austen
you're right.
movies.
They are definitely more of an English tradition
But,
than American
You know,
or
it's
German.
kind of interesting that,
But
we're
they
not
would
entirely
have,
sure,
started to
like,
establish themselves and been very
if there's
popular in the
any
Victorian
earlier
era.
references, because so
By the time Queen
like
Victoria
17th
is
century,
around,
there
and so
is
they
a
are
poem,
invented by a gentleman
by
named
Robert Herrick,
Thomas Smith,
and
he
he
owned
says,
a bakery
the
in
poem is
England,
called
and he was
Ceremony
really looking
upon
to
Candlemas
compete
Eve with the
and this
French
was the day that the
bonbon.
He made a
Christmas,
trip across the
greenery was
English
actually
Channel. He
removed.
went to these
And
French
the first line
patisseries and
is
chocolate
down with
shops
the rosemary,
and saw this
and
brand
so
new
down
little
with the
candy and
bays
said,
and
I need
mistletoe."
something to compete
And so
with
this is the
that.
first written
And so
account of
he comes
mistletoe being
back and he puts
associated
them
with
in
Christmas,
their,
and so
kind of
there's
iconic
not
little,
a
like,
consensus
twisted
of whether or
paper.
not any
And this is going to be about the
survived,
1840s when
or
he's
if this
doing
is
that.
kind of when it really
And
became
then
popular. So
his son,
it's interesting to see how,
so
kind of
still very early
the
Victorian
traditions
era,
that
is going
we
to
feel like
have been established
add the
for
noisemaker
forever, really,
aspect of it.
where we get the name from.
You
So
know, and
the
haven't
reason they're
necessarily
called
been
Christmas
around
crackers
quite as long
is
as we
because
think. They've
they're
still
meant
been
to
around a
emulate
while,
the
but
cracking.
I was just telling
of
a tour that
fire.
came through earlier
Okay,
that
I
the
was wondering
Victorian
why
era is
it's
not
called a
actually as long
cracker.
as
So that
ago
kind of
as we
bang
think.
noise is
Truth.
going to,
So
yeah,
it's,
supposed to be that lovely crackling
definitely,
fire.
it has a lot
And
more
they would have been
influence on
filled
us
with the
than I think a lot
bonbons.
of people realize.
They would have had
And then
paper
of course,
crown, maybe
the
a
meaning of
small
mistletoe
trinket.
when we look at
And so
flower
as
making
we
is
go through
romance.
today,
Now-
they are still very
and
popular.
there's
and
even
especially
more-
if you look,
there's even more.
I
So if
always
you're
think
looking for what
of,
mistletoe
I'm a
looks
big
like,
Doctor Who fan, and so I
that
always think of their Christmas
is what
specials,
it
how there's
looks
always
like.
the cracker featured there. And it's just, it does seem like really
Now-
fun that, you get to
I
pull a
think I
cracker
went
on,
home.
while
There
you're
we go.
having dinner. 'Cause
Stockings
who doesn't want to
hung
have, a
with
toy.
care.
Now, does one
Now,
person
you might be
pull,
able
or
to
do
see
you
we are currently
share it?
sitting in front of
Because
our
I'm
hearth.
looking at your picture
And
there,
behind us
and it's
we
like
have
two people pull.
our
Yes, I
lovely
believe, if I'm remembering
stockings
correctly, is that you pull
by the
it, and
chimney
whoever
with
like
care.
has
Now,
the side
Care so
of
they don't
it
catch on fire.
gets it. And I think, yes, I will say
A
that
wishbone.
a little
This
bit like a
hearth,
wishbone,
doesn't
but
catch
there's
fire
always
anymore.
enough there that like everyone
I
does
don't know the
end
last
up
time
getting
this chimney was cleaned
little
out, and
treat.
so
a
that's
little
on a
treat or
list
have a little
that any of us
crown.
here at the Historical
And a
Society
fun
want
fact
to take.
is the
One of the
Tom
things
Smith
I thought
Company
was
is
just
still around
fascinating
making them
is that
today,
when they were
and they're the ones who
redoing this
provide the
whole
crackers
house
to the
for the
English royal
Historical
family.
Society,
That's
that was behind the
fabulous.
Yeah,
wall.
so I
They
say, I don't, do you
uncovered
want to
it,
pull a
and when you
cracker?
look at it, you go,
Look at this.
why
She's
would
got
they
a couple of them
cover
here.
it?
Well, part of it's
Okay,
because you
so I
get
can
the
feel something in
downdraft
it.
if you're
Yeah.
not using
Okay, so
it.
you're
Yeah.
sticking
Was
one in
And
made
take the
everything
other, and you
cold.
pull.
But it's
Ready, 1, 2, 3.
absolutely gorgeous.
Yes, and you can
One
see more detailing of it
oh,
on
crap.
the
Yeah, so
the
it's
image that we
got-
have here. So that is our
Smells like
hearth
4th of July.
right
A little
behind
bit.
us.
It actually did. And
But
so there's
stockings,
two
today we think
pieces.
about
so
doing
the
stockings
center
either.
is
I
where
know some
But
people
you
who
don't
do them
know what
on
the center
Christmas
is until
Eve,
you pull
Christmas
it.
morning.
You pull it, and so you'll
But
be able to
traditionally they
kind of
were done
unwrap
on
it
December
and
6th, which was
So
Saint
you have a
Nicholas.
little ball.
We have
Yes,
a
Saint
little
Nicholas
bouncy
Day.
ball. And it's a really
Bouncy ball. You
interesting
can keep that,
story,
'cause I have
Saint
I
Nick
have a
is sometimes
major
better known
dislike of
as
balls.
Santa
So,
Claus.
it's
And so
yours.
he is going
But you
to
can
be
see
a
how
saint
that
out
is
of
a-
Turkey.
wow,
And the
Yeah.
reason that
A
they
bishop?
would,
You guys
oh,
can see
you're
him
right, he is the
together.
bishop.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Bishop.
It's
Yeah,
definitely
so he
a
was
fun-
definitely high up in the
It's a fun tradition.
Catholic,
Well, thank you for introducing me to
Absolutely.
my first time doing
Catholic
a
Church,
cracker.
that's the
I
word.
say
Most
they are
people don't
starting
know he
to,
decked
I
somebody
found
for
these
saying
particular ones at Hobby
heresy.
Lobby, so they're starting to become
So
a little
he
bit
had
more
a
popular, I
temper
think, as
too.
we, as
He,
we
and
said,
if,
that
he
the
didn't
internet
necessarily
brings us closer together,
want
and the world
recognition for the
becomes,
things that he
we
did
share those
either. So
traditional,
one of the stories, where we get stockings from, he actually didn't want people to know this about him. And
Yes.
so
those
he
balls are
heard tale
totally fine.
of
Little
a
bouncy balls, no.
gentleman who had 3
But
daughters
with
and
the
he couldn't
Christmas
afford their
cracker,
dowry.
this is when we
No
start
dowry, yeah.
seeing
And at the time,
kind of some of
He's
the
gonna sign the slavery.
commercialization of Christmas.
slavery, I
coming.
saw one
So,
source that said
yeah.
prostitution.
My favorite
So thing.
you know, it's not
and
so
kind of
much
doing
of
research for
woe
this
is me, I
part
won't
of
get
it
married, which
is
sometimes
Yeah.
people
I saw there
associate
was
that.
an
It was a
article
very
released
dire
in the year
situation
1900
for these
that
young
said
girls, and
Christmas
so
is
the
becoming too
legend goes that they had
commercialized.
their
Within the
shoes
next 20
sitting out
years,
by
it
the
will have
window.
completely disappeared.
And on one
Oh,
night,
yeah.
he went
that
and
that
dropped a
particular
solid
author was
gold
not
ball
quite on the
into
money.
each
That
of
we
their
obviously
shoes.
still
Go
And
further.
they were able to
we're
afford
still
dowries and
celebrating Christmas because he
therefore,
was saying it'll be
avoid this
completely
very
gone,
kind of horrific
done.
fate.
No one will celebrate
because it was
Christmas
a
at
gold
all. It'll just be
ball.
another day on the
Mhm.
calendar. And
That's
he
kind of how the gifting of
clearly
oranges
was very
also.
wrong.
long.
Exactly, a lot of
but it does
the
start to
favorite would
move
be to
towards
reach all the way
spending more
down to the
money,
toe.
because
pull
this
out
is
the
when we
giant
see the
orange that
emergence
you would
of
get.
the middle class in the United
Because,
States.
and back
And
then,
so
I mean, we
people
think
have
of
a little bit
oranges, oh
more
yeah, we just
free
go to the
time,
grocery
they
store to
have
get
a little bit
oranges.
more
Mhm.
money
But they
to
were kind
spend,
of a
and
rare,
so
you know,
Yeah.
thing back
businesses
then. And so
are,
it was
looking
very
to
special to get an
capitalize on
orange.
that.
It was
And,
definitely a
you know,
once a
here
year
in
treat, 'cause
Chicago,
goodness
there is
knows
nothing
citrus
more
doesn't
iconic
necessarily
than
grow on
Marshall
trees, at
Fields
least
when you
not around
think
here.
Christmas shopping.
Yeah, and not in
And
England.
so
No,
they
so they would have to be
really
imported, and
truly
so
captured
we
on this.
know,
And so Marshall Fields is going
by
to first
the
open
Victorian
in
era, this is a fairly
1852,
well-established
as a dry
tradition. Now,
goods store.
they
So
would have
kind of,
actually
you
been
think
putting out their
more
actual
grocery store
stockings,
than
so
what they eventually
they look a
turned
little bit
into.
different than the very nice
But then they are
stylized
going
ones.
to
Some
quickly
kids even,
become
they would
one of
hang 'em
the
on their
very
bed,
first
Mhm.
department
too.
stores, and really one
So
of the
think
places
about
that
that.
you go, and if you
Some
think you
person
need it,
you don't
you
even
can
know
probably
get
find it
going
at
into your
Fields.
bedroom at night to put something in your socks. It's so
That's a little
beautiful.
weird.
And
love
hopefully they
their
are
walnut
clean
room and the
socks,
tree
because
and,
goodness
you know,
knows
all
that
of
you didn't
that
have many
beautiful
pairs
stuff
to
that they
choose from, and so hopefully
really-
you're choosing the best one that
they
has
had-
all
they-
of the
They knew what
holes.
they were doing when they
Prepare
like,
'em
let's
before
go with
Christmas.
Christmas.
And
Sitting
now
next to the fire.
the
But
I
didn't
Clement
realize this,
Moore,
that they first
he is
start putting
going
up in
to
their,
write
like,
the
windows
iconic poem,
in
'Twas the Night Before
1897.
Christmas, where he
Oh,
makes
so
that
really
mention of
were-
stockings
it is
hung
a
by the chimney with
long
care.
tradition.
And,
so
that
the
even
idea
further
was with
cements
window
this as a
shopping
holiday
is
tradition.
they wanted to showcase what
for
they
all of
have
us. And so
in their
it's
store, and if
a very
you
iconic
are
part
captivated
of
just what's in the
decorating
window and you stop and you
for
see
Christmas,
it, that it
maybe
doesn't
not
quite
everyone,
feel like
but
Christmas,
people are now
unless
more
you have
likely
to
stockings
come in
up
and
and
spend
somewhere
the money in your house.
Absolutely.
And it's going to be though,
Right.
really kind of in 1897, it's
And
going to
other
be
fun
the brainchild of
traditions
Arthur
is
Fraser. It's going to be the person
Christmas
who really
cracker.
comes up
I've
with these
never done a Christmas
fantastic
cracker.
displays. And they had,
Really?
Truly, I have never
movement
done
even
one.
back
You have
then. And so
13
they
Christmas
really,
trees in your
they
home
were
and you've
smart.
never done a
They
Christmas
knew that
cracker?
it is the children
gosh.
at this time
That is
who,
very
really
true.
wanted,
I'm more German.
who are going to be the
But
ones who are most
no,
vocal
yeah,
about what they
I'm-
want.
I've
Right.
just
And so they would
never-
put the
it was
children's
never part
toys
of a
in the
tradition
windows
in my
display.
home,
Yeah. And then at the top
growing
of every
up,
hour,
to
they
have
would
a
wind
Christmas
up all of
cracker,
the
and I've always,
toys
and
and
seen
let
them
them go,
in
and
movies,
move
they like,
in the
wow,
store
Christmas cracker.
windows.
You know, I
Right.
would say
You
that
actually
Marshall
picked
Fields
up a
is
couple.
I
probably
did. So you're right. They are
part of the
definitely more of an
reason why
English
we wanna
tradition
make
than
Christmas
American or
magical for our
German.
kids.
Mhm.
They
But
were
they
making their
would
stores
have,
magical.
Yes. started to establish
And
themselves and
it
been very
became something
popular
to
in
be
the Victorian
desired.
era. By the
It
time
really
Queen
was. So this,
Victoria
the
is
image we have
around.
on the
And so
screen
they
right
are
now, that is
invented
from
by a
the
gentleman named
20s, I believe. And
Thomas
so it's got a
Smith.
little bit
He
of
owned
that
a
Art
bakery in
Deco
England,
vibe,
and he was
they
really
they
looking to
just,
compete.
like you said,
with
they
the
wanted to
French
make it magical.
bonbon.
And
He
they
made
really
a trip
did
across the
a
English Channel. He
fantastic
went to these
job
French
at that.
patisseries and
they are
chocolate
just going
shops
to
and saw this brand new
continue
little candy and
to
said,
kind of
I
one
need
up
something to
themselves
compete with
throughout the
that.
years.
I almost
And
wonder if
so
Disney got his
he
ideas from
comes
Marshall
back
Fields.
and he
I
puts them
mean,
in
Disney was born in Chicago,
kind of
and
iconic
so
little,
he
like,
would have
twisted
absolutely been
paper.
aware of.
known Marshall
And this is
Fields,
going to be
yeah.
about the 1840s
And
when he's doing
they
that.
were fairly unique in
And
that when
then
we hit,
his
the
son
Depression
in
era,
the 1860s.
they don't
So
stop.
it's still very early
And so
Victorian
even though they
era,
have to get
is
a little
going
bit creative,
to,
that's when they develop that iconic
add the
tagline, "Give the lady
noisemaker
what she
aspect
wants" of it.
And
And
at
at
this
this
point,
point, so the
they're
reason they're
saying,
called
well,
Christmas
maybe even though
crackers
she
is
can't
because
come
they're
in
meant
and
to emulate
necessarily
the cracking
spend
of the fire.
money or doesn't have
Okay,
money
I
to
was wondering
spend,
why they
we
call
can
them a
create this
cracker.
fantasy
So that
that
kind
she
of
can
bang
think
noise
she is
is
this
going
person
to,
who
yeah,
can afford
supposed to be
all
that
these
lovely
luxury goods that
crackling
are on
fire,
display in the window. Even
and
if,
they would have been
as
filled
we
with the
know, the Depression was a
bonbons.
very hard time
They would have
for
had a paper
many
crown, maybe a
people.
small trinket.
And so she was
and so
able
as
to,
we
they were
go
able to,
through today,
It causes you to
yeah,
dream
they
and think
are
maybe not today,
still
but maybe
very popular, and
tomorrow.
especially if you
Exactly.
look,
And so
I
they
always
really,
think of,
truly,
I'm a big Doctor Who fan,
you
so
know,
I
are
always think of
just
their Christmas
the
specials,
magic
how there's always
of the
the
season.
cracker featured
And
there.
they lasted for,
And
I
it's
mean, they
just,
still
it does
obviously
seem like
create
really
the
fun
window
that, you get to pull a cracker
and in
on
the
while you're
1940s
having
and
dinner, because who doesn't
45
want to
is
have,
when
they
a
kind of go
toy-
into
Now,
their
does
heyday
one
when we
person
think the
pull it, or
Marshall
do you
Fields, because even
share
kind of
it?
before
I
this, they were
said,
still
I'm
just
looking at your picture
picture there. and it's like
extravagant
two
store
people pull
display.
it.
Yes,
So it
I
wasn't
believe, if I'm
necessarily,
remembering correctly, is that you
there wasn't
pull
any
it,
sort of like
and
story
whoever like
between them. It was more
has
so like the goods that they were
side of it
selling.
gets
When
it.
we
And I think
hit,
like
you know,
it's kinda
kind
like
of
a
post right at
wishbone.
the
a
end of
little
World War
bit like
II,
a
post
wishbone,
World War
but
II
there's
is when
always
they
enough there
start
that like
creating the
everyone
stories.
does end up
And so the
getting.
first one
A
was
little treat.
A little
was the night
treat or
before
have a little
Christmas.
crown.
They
So
stayed
And a
now
fun
the
fact
windows are
is the
themed.
Tom Smith
Yes,
Company
and
is
so
It's
still
not
around.
just
of
here's
making
our
them
stuff.
today, and they're the
It's a
ones who
theme.
provide
Exactly,
the
and
crackers
they
to the English
actually,
royal family.
That's
start to
fabulous.
create
Yeah,
some
so
characters
I
to
said, I don't know if
compete.
would
Do you
that a
want a
good friend
friend
of
of
I
yours
yours?
do.
from
Look at
Montgomery
it. She's
Ward,
got a couple
Mr.
of them
Rudolph the
here.
Red-Nosed
Rudolph,
Reindeer.
okay.
Rudolph's a
So I
very
can
good
feel
friend of
something
mine.
in it.
Yes.
Okay, so you're drinking one in it.
And
take the
so
other,
they
you
recognize that
Ready, 1, 2,
Montgomery
3.
Ward, one of their biggest competitors,
One, 2.
has this,
Oh, crack.
yeah,
this
so it's
theme
got or mascot.
Smells
is the
like
word.
yes,
4th of
definitely a
July.
mascot.
He
little
was a
bit.
mascot,
They
and so
actually
they said
did.
we
And
need one of
so
those, and so
there's
they
2
invent
pieces.
Uncle
And so
Mistletoe
the
and Aunt
center is
Holly.
where
But you don't
And
know what
so
the center is
Uncle
until you pull
Mistletoe
it.
and
you
Aunt
pull it, and so
Holly,
you'll be able to
they
kind
had a
of
TV show
unwrap
at
it
one
and
point.
you
I
have a
fell
little
down a
ball.
rabbit
We have a
hole doing
little-
all
a
this
little
kind of
bouncy
research.
Rabbit
ball.
holes are fun.
They are
Bouncy
fun,
ball.
and so
can
they
keep that
had
'cause I have-
they
I
had
have a major
the
dislike
TV
of balls.
show. They
So,
had
it's yours.
he was very much
But
so
you can
not
see how
quite
that is
Santa
a
Claus, but something
wow,
very
yeah.
akin to you would
I
go
don't
up
know if
and
you
you would
guys can see
tell
what I
Uncle
put together.
Mistletoe and Aunt
That's so
Holly what you
cool.
would want for
It's
Christmas.
definitely a
And
fun.
they created all of these,
It's a fun
these stories
tradition.
about
Thank you
this
for introducing
couple
me to
in their
the, my
display
first time
windows,
doing
let
a
you into
cracker.
their
I say they
home.
are starting to.
And
I
then
found these
about
particular
20
ones at
years or
Hobby
so
Lobby, so they're
later,
starting to become a
they
little bit
created
more
the Field
popular. I
Mice
think as we,
family.
as we
Oh
said,
my
that the
gosh.
And so
the
they're
internet
I have
brings
to
us closer
investigate the Field
together,
Mice
and the
family.
world
They,
becomes,
yeah, so
we share
it's my
those
favorite
goals.
double
I like the
entendre a little bit
multi-milkals
there
and
of
these
that
little
is
things here.
obviously Marshall Fields, and then
they have
field
some
mice are,
good stuff.
you know, a species of mice.
These are
Yes.
cute. Those
And it
balls
is
are
just
totally fine.
there was
Little
Mr. and
bouncy
Mrs.
balls,
and they
no.
had 2 kids,
But
and they
with
had
the
all
Christmas
sorts of
cracker,
adventures.
this is when we start
And
seeing
there was even one
kind of some
year
of the
that the unveiling
commercialization
story
of
was when one of
Christmas
the
come
mice
in.
children
So,
was born. There
my
was a whole story
favorite
about
thing,
another field
and
mouse
kind of
being
doing
added to
research
the
for this
family,
part of
and
it
you
is
would have
I
these
saw
giant
there was an
unveilings,
article
and so they
released
would
in
start
the year
working on this
1900
design
that said
like
Christmas
almost a
is
year
becoming too
ahead,
commercialized within the next
and they
20
start
years.
putting
It
in
will
the
have
windows in
completely
like
disappeared.
October, and they
Oh, yeah.
are
That
sealed
particular
off, and they
author was
are,
not quite on the money. That
you
we
know,
obviously
very much so
still
they
go
don't want
further.
people to see.
we
Waiting for the
have
big
we're
reveal.
still
And so
celebrating
then
Christmas because he
on,
was
you know,
saying it'll be
the start of
completely
the
gone
Christmas
by.
season,
No
it
one
is
will
a
celebrate
huge
Christmas at all.
unveiling,
It'll
and
just
so
be
that was
another
one of
day
their
on the
big ones when
calendar,
they
and he
had a new field
clearly
mouse
But
being
was
was
born.
very
caused a
wrong.
traffic jam on that street.
But it does
cannot
start to
like
move
State
towards
Street
spending more
downtown
money.
Chicago is
Because
already
this is when we
such
see the
a,
emergence
you know,
of
it's
the
a very
middle class
busy
in the United
thoroughfare.
States.
Yeah.
And
And so people
especially,
have
you
a
know,
little bit
during this
more
time
free
period,
time.
is if
They
you
have a
wanted to
little
do
bit more
any
money
shopping
to
in
spend, and
Chicago,
so,
in any of the Chicago
savvy
suburbs,
businesses
you weren't
are,
necessarily
looking to
staying in the
capitalize
suburbs. You
on
were
that.
going
And,
into the city to
here in
shop. And
Chicago,
so
there
you
is
have,
nothing more
you know, even at
iconic
that point,
than
there's, you know,
Marshall
over a
Fields
million
when you
people
think
living in the
Christmas
Chicagoland
shopping.
suburban area.
And so
They really thousands of people for the unveiling of these windows and trying to catch a glimpse and having that magic for them. And
Yeah.
so
as a dry
it's
goods store,
just
so kind of, you know, you think
insane.
more grocery
you know, and
store
they
than what they eventually turned
eventually
into.
they do
But
start
then
they
are
do
going
phase
to
out
quickly
Uncle
become one
Mistletoe
of
and
the
Aunt
very
Holly with
first
the field
department
mice. And this is
stores, and
around
really
when
one of the places
Marshall
that you
Fields,
go,
as
and
we
if you
know,
think you
is
need it,
sold
you
to
can probably
Macy's,
find it
or
at
this would have been
Fields.
Don't say that.
it
Will
so
always
okay.
be Marshall.
It is
Field.
always
Walnut
Marshall
room and
Fields.
their tree.
Well,
You know, and
you
I
know,
think
all
we
of
have
that
here at
beautiful
Lombard
stuff.
Historical
They
Society
really-
an even stronger
They-
connection
yeah.
to
They knew
Marshall
what they were
Fields
doing when
because
they
of the
like, let's
clock.
go with Christmas.
Yeah, so Ellen Martin, who
And now
actually
I am looking out
we,
my window at the house she lived in.
Oh,
I didn't
Christy
realize this,
Reed.
that they
Christy Reed,
Yeah.
thank you,
start
great
putting up
Christy
in
Reed.
their like
We've been
windows.
so Ellen
in
Martin focused
1897.
lately with the voting.
Oh,
They
so
went
Christy,
really
Christy
It
Reed,
is
she
a
made the clock hands for
long
Marshall
tradition.
Fields.
It's a State
And
Street
so the
clock.
idea
That
was
store
with
she
window
lived.
shopping
And so
is they wanted
it
to
was very
showcase
sad.
what they
And so
have
when they
It'll
kind of
always
in
be
their
Marshall.
store.
it'll always
And
be
if
Marshall
you
Fields, and so they
are
they do
captivated just
start to
what's in the
phase out
window
some of
and
the
you
iconic
stop and you
characters,
see it,
and then go
maybe
into
not
kind of more
everyone,
general.
but people
And
are
that's
now
really
more
when they
likely
unfortunately
to
stopped
come
making
into
the
this
win
place
on
and
site.
spend the
They're made
money.
off site. So
Um,
there
and
is
it's
that
going to
kind of
be
switch.
though
It's also when they stopped
really
making
kind
the
of in
Frango mints, which
1897. It's going to be actually
also
the
have on
brainchild of
site.
Arthur
They
Fraser. is
used to
going
make
be
them
the
on the
person
top
who
floor, and
really
now they
comes up
don't.
with
So
these
some of those
fantastic
changes maybe aren't
displays,
for
and
the
they had
better.
They were
but
the best.
movement even back
And then,
then, and so
but I
they
did learn
really
one
they
very
were smart.
interesting fact
They
about the
knew that
windows.
it is the
They are
children
not heated,
at
or at
this
least they were
time
not
who
heated for a very
really
long
wanted,
time.
who are going to be the
So
ones who are
if
most
you could
vocal about what they
imagine
want.
working
Right.
in
And so they would
there,
put the children's toys
Oh my
in the
goodness.
windows
That's why you started
display.
doing it in
And then at the
October, and
top
you
of
can
every
shut it.
hour,
Oh
they
my
would
so that way your
wind up
fingers
all the
would
toys
yeah.
and let
But
them
that would also
go,
add
like,
to a
and
nice
move
little frosting
in the
around
store
the edge of
windows.
the-
Probably.
I
would
So
say
that was
that
an
Marshall Field was
interesting tidbit
probably
that I learned.
part of the
And then,
reason
of
why
course,
we
if
wanna
you were
make
going to,
Christmas
go all
magical
the way
for our
down
kids.
to see
They were making their stores
the windows,
magical.
yes,
And
you have to
it became something to be
make a stop
desired. to the walnut room.
It really was. So
And
this,
so this
the
kind of
image we
brings
have
us
on the
full
screen right
circle
now, that is
to
from the 20s,
the
I
tradition
believe, and so
of
it's got a little bit
tea.
of
And so
that
that is
Art
one of the
Deco vibe.
that is the
and
walnut
they
room. One of
really,
the
they
pictures
I
on
am
the screen
sure
there.
a
like you
lot
said,
of
they
our
wanted to make it
viewers
magical, and they
have
really
had
did
that
a
experience of going
fantastic
down to Marshall
job
Fields
at
to
that,
the walnut
and
room.
they
It's
are
a
just going
tradition.
to
It truly is. I know. I
continue
looked to see,
kind of one
and
up
you can still
themselves
go have tea
throughout
at the
the
Walnut
years.
Room
I almost
during
wonder if
Christmas time.
Disney got his
You do
ideas from
obviously
Marshall
need a
Fields.
reservation.
I
and the
mean,
reservations have been gone for
Disney
about a
was
month and a
born in
half.
Chicago,
Yeah.
and so
they do
he
have,
would
if
have absolutely
you,
been
Yeah,
aware.
I've
known Marshall
Do they
Fields,
let us
yeah.
call it Marshall Fields for
And
today?
you know they
I'm
were
still
fairly
going to
unique
call
in that
Marshall
when we
Fields
hit,
no
know,
matter
the
what.
Marshall Fields
Depression
and the
era,
Sears Tower.
they don't
Exactly,
stop.
but they do have,
And so
I did see
even
on
though
their
they have
website,
to
they
get a
do
little
have
bit
some
creative, that's when they
walk-up
developed that
space
iconic
if you're willing
tagline,
to
"Give
sit
the
at the
lady
bar.
what she wants."
Okay.
And
So
at this point,
not all is
they're
lost.
saying, well,
And
maybe
so,
even though she
and that is
can't
all
come in
ages.
and
So if you do have a
necessarily
younger shopper with
spend
you, they can also sit at the
money
wine
or doesn't
bar
have
and
money to
have
spend,
Will they let
we
you
can
just
create
walk
this
around
fantasy that
and
she can
see?
think
they will
she is this
not let you
person
walk in there
who can
because,
afford all
but
these
they
luxury
did make it
goods
a
that are
point
on
to say that
display
if
in
you
the
want a
window.
picture with the tree,
Even
they
if,
have
you know,
staged it
as
in
we
a
know,
way
the
that you can
Depression
still
was
have
a
a
very
lovely
hard
vignette
time
in front
for
of
without
many
disturbing
people,
the
diner,
diners.
and so
Yes.
she was able to. They were
but the
able to,
walnut
you know,
room,
Well, it
the
causes
tea
you
that
to
you would get
dream and
there
think, maybe
is
not today, but maybe tomorrow.
it's
exactly.
American
And so
high
they
tea.
really,
So
truly,
the
you know, are just
English
the
high
magic
tea is
of the
what they would
season.
refer to as like a
And
meat tea,
they
and so that's where you
lasted
have
for, I mean,
almost
they
an
still
entire
obviously
full
create
meal,
the
and it's
window
really referring
displays.
to the height of the
And
table.
in
And so
the
you're talking
1940s
about
and
having
45 is when
meats.
they kind of
Yeah,
go
but
into
when
their
we think of
heyday.
high tea,
When
we're
we think
thinking
the Marshall
highbrow.
Fields, because even kind of
Exactly,
before this,
but
they
it's
were still
not.
just,
It's the height of the
extravagant
table.
store
And
displays.
see, it was
So
kind
it
of like
wasn't
when you're in
necessarily,
your dining room at
there
that
wasn't any sort of
table
like
versus your
story
coffee
between
table.
them. It was more
Exactly.
so like the
Love.
goods that they were
And
selling.
so, yeah, so low tea
When
would
we
be
hit,
where
you
you
know,
were
kind
just
of post
post
right at the end of World
you know,
War
like
II,
afternoon
post
tea, you're
World War
just
II
sitting,
is when they
um,
start creating the
you know, and
stories. And so the
enjoying
first one
With a little
was
something, something.
yes,
the
and
night
maybe
before
a cake.
Christmas.
Yeah.
They
Um,
stayed.
So now the
But
windows
the
are
tea that you
themed.
get
Yes,
at
and
the
so
It's not
walnut
just here's
room
our
is, like I
stuff.
said, it's American
It's a
high
theme.
tea. So
exactly,
you are
and
at a
they
higher
actually,
table, they're not making you sit
start to create
down
some
low
characters
and at a
to
coffee
compete
table,
with a good friend
but
of
you're gonna
yours
have more of those
from
nibbles that
Montgomery
are
Ward,
associated maybe with
Mr.
coffee
Rudolph the
table.
Red-Nosed
Rudolph's a
Tea,
very
and
good
that
friend of
you would
mine.
have, you know, kind of like the big tiered with all
And
the
so
pastries
they
and the
recognize that
sweets.
Montgomery
I do
Ward,
think
one
you
of their
can
biggest
still order a
competitors,
full lunch there, but they
has
offer
this,
both varieties.
As
You
you
know,
can
this
tell, I
theme
really want to
mascot.
go to
Mhm.
tea.
Yeah,
I
that's
think I'm gonna
definitely
try
a
and get a
mascot.
He was a
reservation for
mascot,
next
and
year.
so they said we need one
for,
of those, and so
for
they
myself,
sent
I'll go down
Uncle
with you.
Mistletoe
Yes,
and Aunt Holly.
but like I said, you
Aw.
don't need a
And so,
reservation to see the tree,
Uncle
to
Mistletoe
see
and
the
Aunt
windows.
Holly, they had a TV show
And there's
at one
also
point.
with this rabbit hole that
I fell down a
there are
rabbit hole
also
doing all
many
this
of
kind
many
of
of the
research.
Rabbit holes
hotels
are
like the
fun.
They
Palmer
are fun,
House,
and so
they had
you know, they also have their
you know,
own
they had
tradition and
the
offer tea
TV
service
show
there as well.
They
So there are
had
plenty of places.
you know, there's the
You know,
Russian
he
tea
was
room
very
as
much
well.
so
That's
not
in
quite
kind of the Loop
Santa Claus,
area.
but
So
something
there are
very
plenty of places
akin
to have
to you would go up
that
and you would
tea,
tell
even
Uncle
if it's not
Mistletoe
at
and
the
Aunt
iconic
Holly what
walnut
you would
room.
want for Christmas.
But
And they
that does
created
bring
all of
us
these, you know, these
to
stories
the
about this
end
couple
Well, you know,
in their
tea time
display
together.
I'd like
windows
to
to let you
know,
into their
I
home.
love
And then
kind of
about 20 years or so
collecting
later,
traditions.
they
I would
created the
love to
Field
know
Mice
some of the
family.
Oh
traditions.
my gosh.
that
And so
some
they're
viewers,
the
I have to investigate
if
the
they
Field
wanted
Mice
to share
family.
They
Sometimes,
yeah, so it's my
I
favorite
know,
double
like,
entendre
for
a little
my
bit there
family, one
of
of
that
our
is obviously
traditions
Marshall
is when we
Fields,
started
and then
having
field mice
grandkids,
are,
our
you know,
grandkids
species
pick
of
on 'em.
mice.
They're cute.
And
at the
it is
time,
just
they
there
were living
was
in a
Mr. and
small
Mrs. and they
apartment,
had
so they
two kids
really
and they
didn't
had all
know.
sorts of
Yeah.
adventures.
So we started the
And there was
tradition
even
of
one year that the
experiences
unveiling
as a
story was when
gift.
one of the mice children
But
was born.
one of the
There was a whole
experiences
story
that we
about
would
another
do is
field
we
mouse being
always took
added
the
to the
kids
family. And
to
it's you would
Wanamaker's,
have these giant
and we
unveilings,
would
and so they
say,
would start working
you
on
need
this
to pick out a
design
tree that you,
like
an
almost a
ornament that you
year
would
ahead.
to put on your grown-up
And they
tree.
start putting in the the windows in
And
like
so every
October,
year, we
and
take
they
them over
are
there and they
sealed
buy,
off,
we let
and
them
they
buy
are,
an ornament. It
you
goes
know,
on my
very much so they
tree,
don't want
but then
people to
eventually
see.
when they're
Waiting for the big
grown-ups,
reveal.
which
And so
that's
then
happening
on,
way
you know,
too
the
fast,
start of the Christmas season, it
they
is
will
a
get their ornaments
huge
back to start
unveiling.
their
And so that was
collection
one
for
of their
their
big
tree.
ones when they
Oh, that
had
is
a
such a
Newfield mouse
sweet
keyboard.
tradition.
But it's
that street.
I
Really, it's really
cannot
nice and special.
like
So, but I would
State
love
Street
to know what some
downtown
of
Yeah.
your
Chicago is
traditions are,
already
because
such
we
a,
might
you know,
steal some
it's a
of
very
them.
busy thoroughfare.
I'd say, yeah, if you'd like to,
Especially,
you're more
you know,
than welcome
during
to, if
this
you want to
time period
unmute
is
or
if you want to put
wanted
them
to
in
do
the
any
chat. I know
shopping
we
in
had a couple
Chicago, in
comments
any of the Chicago
Diane Sloak
suburbs.
said that they
You weren't
loved the spider
necessarily
story
staying in
from
the
you.
suburbs. You were
I have a
going
feeling
into
now
the
that a
city to
spider
shop,
ornament will
and
be
so
making
you
its way onto
have,
my tree.
you know, even at that
Absolutely.
point, there's,
And
over 1 million
then
people living in
Cindy
the
said that you can
Chicagoland
actually make your
suburban
own
area.
Christmas cracker
And
without
so
the pop, by using a
thousands
toilet
of
paper
people
roll
for
filled
the
with toys and
unveiling of these
candy, and then
windows and
you
trying to catch a
hypnotize
glimpse
them
about that
and having that
gunpowder smell.
magic for them. And so
I see,
it's
yeah,
just
I don't know how you would replicate the
insane,
gunpowder,
No.
you know, and
but there are
they,
definitely ways to make a
eventually
homemade, they
Yeah.
do start, they do phase out
a
Uncle
homemade
Mistletoe and Aunt Holly with
cracker.
the field mice, and this is around when
I
Marshall
know,
Fields,
well,
as
one
we
of,
know,
I'll
is
share
sold
one
to
of my
Macy's,
Christmas
or this
traditions
would have been
is
Don't
my,
say
half of my
it's
family
It
is
will
very
always be
Italian.
Marshall
It is
Fields?
always
Really?
Marshall
Yes.
Fields.
Yes,
Yes,
Well, you know, and
I
think
have,
we
I'm
have
a
here
very
at
Italian
Lombard
on one
Historical
side,
Society
and so
an even stronger
we,
connection
for Christmas
to
Eve,
Marshall
we
Fields
do
because
kind
of
of
the
the,
clock.
yeah, so Ellen Martin, who actually I am
Oh,
looking
yeah.
out my window at the house
and it's
she lived
when,
in,
you know,
it's,
Christy
we
Reed.
get,
Christy
we
Reed,
don't
thank
really
you.
do
Great
like
Christy
a
Reed.
center
We've been
protein,
so Ellen Martin
but we
focused
have like
lately
4
with
different
the
kinds of
voting.
salmon.
But
We have the
Christy-
scallops.
Christy
I
Reed,
know
she
we've
made the
done
clock
Did you do
hands
the
for
octopus
Marshall
and
Fields.
Right.
squid
State
and-
Street.
I don't, we haven't done
Gosh,
it,
And so
recently, but I
it
enjoy
was
like,
very sad, and
octopus
so
squid. So
when
I would
they
be
kind of
always
very
be
happy if
it'll
we
always
had
be
it.
Marshall
I've seen
Fields, and so
people put it
they do
like
start to
stuff in
phase
their
out some of the
bathtub
iconic
and
characters.
wait.
Yeah, that,
Oh,
that
that's
would
a
be,
little
I would,
and
See,
that's
I
really
would
when
want
they
it as a
unfortunately
pet.
stopped making the displays
I'm gonna
on
keep
site,
this
they're made
little guy.
off site,
see,
so
that's where I would
there
get
there
the, like,
is that kind of
processed
switch. It's
stuff
also
where it would
when
just be the
they stopped,
calamari that I would
making
have
the
to
Frango
Well,
mince, which
I will
we
admit,
also
I am
have
a
on
Catholic, and when
site.
I was growing up,
They
I
used
thought
to
I'd be
make
a
them on the
horrible
top
Catholic
floor, and
because
now
I
they
hated
don't.
fish
So
sticks.
some of those changes maybe
So-
aren't for the better.
They were
But
the
yeah, I
best.
say, yeah,
and
luckily,
I
then
couldn't do
but I
seafood.
did
When
learn
I
one
think of the
very interesting
Italian,
fact about the windows.
seafood night, I'm
Yeah.
like,
They are
like,
not heated, or at
I
least
don't
they were
know.
not heated
but
for a
and then we
very long
also have a
time.
ton of cheese and crackers.
So if
and
you
just,
could
like, all
imagine
sorts of-
working
it's one of my
in
favorite
there,
meals of the
you
year, 'cause
know,
it's just
oh
like
my
an
goodness.
entire
That's when we
charcuterie
started
gravy.
like October and you get a shot. Oh my
So that way your
God.
fingers, so
Good
that's
grief.
one of my
Yeah.
favorite
But that would
Christmas
also add
traditions
to a
that
nice
I
little
have.
frosting around the edge of the
And then,
so
that was
Linda
an
shared
interesting
that
tidbit that
they
I
do
learned. And then, of course, if
their
you're
their
going
Christmas
to,
get
you know,
together
go
is
all
a
the way down
47-year
see
tradition by having tea at
the
Pinecone
windows,
Cottage Tea House in
you
Downers
have
Grove.
to.
that place is
make a
fabulous.
stop.
I've never
the
been. I
wall
know.
room.
You have
Yes,
to
and so
go.
this kind of brings
it
us
is
full circle
fabulous. And I was
to
just next
the
to it
tradition
today
of
because I
tea,
was
and
over
so
at
that
the Downers
is
Grove
one of
Public
the
Library.
that
And
is
it's
the
right
walnut
next to
room.
it.
One of the pictures
I
I
am
am
sure
there. Maybe I
a
won't
lot
even
of
have to go
our
all the way to Chicago to
viewers
have a lovely
have
after
had
spot
that
of tea.
experience They of
have
going
beautiful
down to
and they have
Marshall great Fields collection
Yeah.
of the walnut room.
teapots.
It's a
That's
tradition.
always,
Mhm.
it truly is. I know I looked to
Having a
see,
good teapot is very
and
important.
you
And
can still
then
go have tea at the
Cindy
walnut
said that they
room
also
during
like to
Christmas
give
time. I did, you do need, obviously need a
experiences too, and says
reservation,
give
and the
things to do,
reservations
not
have been
to
gone for about a
dust.
month and a half.
Absolutely.
I
They
like
do
that
have, if
phrasing of
you,
it.
You know, one of the
Do they let us
best
call it Marshall Fields
experiences
for
that
the
you can
day?
bring with the kids.
I'm still going to call it
Seriously,
Marshall Fields,
Lilacia
no
Park.
matter what.
Marshall Fields and the
Yes.
I
Sears
love
Tower.
that so
Exactly,
much
but they
better
do
than
have, I did
I
see
love
on
the
their
Morton
website, they
Arboretum,
do have some
but
walk
that
up
is expensive.
space if you're
Mhm.
willing to sit at the
It
bar.
takes over an hour to do.
So not all
and
is
if
lost.
you've
Yeah.
got
And so,
small children,
and that is all ages. So if you do have a
Lilacia
younger
Park
shopper
is
with you, they can
compact,
also sit at the
it's
wine
easy
bar
to walk
and
around.
have
They have
Will
hot
they
tea.
let you just walk around?
Mhm.
It's free.
They will
It's
not let you
free.
walk in there because, but they
Lilacia
did make
Park,
it a point to say
seriously,
that if you
best
want a picture with the
value
tree, they have staged
around,
it in a way
especially
that
if
you
you
can
have
still have a
little
lovely
ones.
vignette
Yeah,
in
they
front
they
of it.
put about
disturbing
800,000
the diner, if not
Yeah,
more
yeah.
Christmas lights
Yeah.
across
but
the
the
street here at
walnut room,
Lilacia Park
the
here
tea
in
that you would
Lombard,
get
and
there is,
it is
um,
certainly
it's American
I know
high
I'm
tea.
waiting for
So
probably next week on a
the
Tuesday night.
English
high
Definitely
tea
go
is
during the week.
what they would refer to
Yes,
as like
if
a
you were
meat
looking to
tea,
have a
and
little
so that's
less
where you have
number
almost
of
an
people,
entire
because well,
full
the
meal.
night that they
And it's
turn on the
really
lights
referring
here,
to
we
the
do
height of the
Jingle Bell
table.
Jubilee,
And
which is a
so
huge.
you're talking
They
about
when
having
they flip the giant switch and
meats.
turn on the
Yeah,
lights.
when
We
we
had
think of high
1200
tea, we're
people
thinking
come through our carriage
highbrow.
house that night. And
Exactly.
so
But it's
magical.
not.
it's the height of the
really
table.
is. If
And
you've
see, it's
never
kind of like
been,
when
may-
you're
maybe
in
you've
your
just
dining
driven by
room
it.
at
Mhm.
that table
Find
versus
a
your
place to
coffee
park
table.
and
Exactly.
walk through
Yeah.
with.
And so, yeah, so
especially kids,
low
'cause you
tea
don't
would
wanna
be
just
where you
make
would just
Christmas
be, or
magical.
you
They
know, like
really do. I
afternoon
know
tea,
we
you're just
had a
sitting,
little boy come through one of our Christmas
you know,
tours
and
this afternoon. and
enjoying
With a
the way
little
his
something,
eyes
something.
just
and
lit
maybe a
up,
cake.
and to
But
wanting
the
to go
tea
and
that
grab
you
the
get
things off
at
the tree,
the
and his
Walnut
parents were
Room is, like I
fantastic
said,
about
it's
redirecting
American
him
high
too.
tea.
But
So you
he
are at
just
a
was
higher table. They're not
so
making you
delightful
sit
to have too.
Well,
down
one of the
low
things that
and at a
I
coffee
was
table.
commenting when
But
we-
you're gonna
when I
have
first
more of
came in
those
here
nibbles that are
was the
associated maybe
tinsel.
with
I didn't
coffee
even know you
tables.
could buy
Tea,
tinsel
and
anymore,
that you would
and you
have,
found
kind of
some
like the big
beautiful
tiered with all the
tinsel.
pastries
Yes,
and the
we went to
sweets.
Amazon
I
to
do
find
think
our
you can
tinsel this
still
year
order a full
because
lunch there,
and
but
they
it's the
offer
slipperyest
both
tinsel
varieties.
I have
As you can
ever
tell,
just
I
don't get it
really
if you
want
have
to
a
go
cat.
to tea, and
Yeah, think I'm gonna
it is,
try and get a
it's not
reservation for
pet
next
friendly,
year.
unfortunately,
Okay.
but I was telling
for-
him
for
that,
myself. I'll
go
the
down
tinsel
with
that
you.
is falling on the
Yes,
ground.
I
But
will
like I
be
said, you
vacuuming
don't need a
up,
reservation
in
to see the
January
tree,
because
to see the
otherwise I'd be
windows.
running the vacuum every 20 minutes.
And
It
there's
is pretty,
also
though.
with this rabbit hole that I
Yeah,
fell down.
say, if
There are
anyone else
also
has any
many of the
questions
hotels,
or
like
if
the
they
Palmer
have,
House,
you know, they
anything
also
else
have their
that they'd
own
love to
tradition
share.
and offer
I
tea
know that,
service there
oh,
as well.
Lori
So there are
just
plenty of
sent
places,
something
you know,
in.
there's the Russian tea
Um,
room as well. That's
she
in
says
kind
that
of the
when
Loop
she was a
area.
kid,
So there are plenty of places
they would go to
have
Christmas Eve mass
that
and
tea,
bundle
even if
into the
it's not
car,
the iconic one
and drive
area.
across the Connecticut River
But
to her grandmother's
does
house,
bring
singing
us
over the river and through the
to
woods,
the end.
and that they would
You
then
know,
sing
tea time
happy
together.
birthday
I'd
to
like to
Jesus,
know,
and the youngest
I
grandchild would place baby
love
Jesus
kind of
into the manger scene
Collecting
on top of the
traditions.
TV.
I would
That
love
is
to know some
perfect.
of the
I bet you
traditions
does TV have an
that
antenna?
our viewers,
But
if
maybe
they wanted to share
Yeah,
some.
that is just very sweet, you know,
I know,
and
like
I remember
for
too, it's
my
like,
family,
at
one
the
of our
first time I
traditions
went to,
is
and
when
we
we
did
started
call it
having
midnight mass
grandkids.
then, now it's like
Our
10,
grandkids,
10
they've gotten
p.m. or
younger
so.
stuff.
And at the
But
time,
I
they were
remember
living
the first
in
time
a small
I
apartment, so
went,
they
I was
really didn't need
probably
any more.
7 years old.
So
And I
we
remember
started
falling
the
asleep
tradition
at
of
mass.
experiences.
But I've been to
as a
that
kid.
midnight mass, 10 p.m. mass
But
ever
one
since
of
I
the
was
experiences that we would do
'cause
is we
that
always
for
took
me
the kids
is when Christmas
to
starts.
wanna makers.
I know,
And
my
we would
grandmother. So
say,
my grandmother
you
had
need to
12
pick
children.
out a tree.
So I'm
that
gonna
you-
start the
or
story
an
with that.
ornament that you
God
would
bless her.
someday like to put on
Correct.
a grown-up tree.
And
And
she's
so
still with
every
us
year,
today. She's gonna be
we take 'em
98 in
over there,
about 3
and
weeks.
we let them
And
buy
she
an
would
ornament.
go to
It goes
midnight mass
on
as
my
well.
tree,
And that
but then
was
eventually
her
when they're
time to be
grown-ups,
alone on
which
Christmas
they're
because none
happening
of the
way
kids
too
would go with
fast,
her. So she got to go to midnight mass by
they will get
herself.
their ornaments back to
And then she
start
would come
their
back and
collection
like
for their tree.
like
Oh, that
be
is such a
working
sweet
all through the day, through the
tradition.
night, and
But it's really,
yeah,
really nice and special.
incredible.
So, but I would
incredible
love to
woman
know
to
what some
bring
of
Christmas
your
together for
traditions
12
are,
children.
because we might
Yes.
steal
So I
some
can
of them.
understand why she saw
And
midnight
say, yeah,
mass.
if you'd like to,
Definitely
you're
as
more than welcome
her
to if you
peace
want to
honey
unmute or
time.
if you want to
Yes.
put them in the
Yes.
chat. I know we had a couple
Mhm.
comments.
peace.
Diane Slowick said that they loved the
Yeah, I could
spider
say
story
she would
from
come,
you, which
well,
I have
she'd
a
already
feeling
made
now
the
that a
gingerbread
spider
by
ornament
that
will be
point, I
making its way
believe,
onto
but
my tree.
that was also
And then
another tradition of
Cindy
hers
said that you
was
can
to
actually make your own
gingerbread
Christmas
and
cracker without the
bake
pop,
and
by using a
all
toilet
sorts
paper
of
roll filled with
things.
toys and
So
candy, and then you
Well, this
you
is
tie the
something
end.
about
wonderful.
that
And
gunpowder
thank you
smell.
guys so much for joining us.
I
hope
see. Yeah, I don't know how you would
that this
replicate the
brought you a
gunpowder
little
smell,
bit
but
of
there are
light and
definitely ways
warmth
to make
on
a
this kind of
homemade
cold, rainy day.
yeah,
a homemade
Well,
cracker.
my doesn't want to
Move
I know
along,
one of
but
I say I'll share one of my
if you want
Christmas
even more
traditions
Christmas in
is
your
my
life, I do
half of my
believe
family is
last
very
year's
Italian.
Christmas tea is
And
actually on our
really?
YouTube
Yes.
channel, as well as some of
Yes,
the other ones where if you wanted
I'm
to learn
a
even
very
more
Italian on one
about
side.
specifically
And
tea
so
tradition. If you go to
we
Lombard,
for
if you look up
Christmas
Lombard
Eve,
Historical
we
Society
do
on
kind of
YouTube, we
the
have a whole host
seven
of those,
fishes,
including
tradition.
flower
And so
language,
we-
Valentine's, Christmas,
and it's when
we
fashion.
get
we don't
fashion
really
tea
do like
tradition.
a
So
center
this is one of the
protein,
favorite
but
things
we
that
have
we
we get to
4
do
different kinds of
throughout the
salmon.
year.
We
And
have the
so
scallops. I know
we're
we've
very
done.
glad that
Did
you
do
were
the
all able
octopus
to
and
join us.
squid and
We haven't done it
and
recently,
share
but I
it.
enjoy
So
like
thank you
octopus and squid. So
all
I would be
so
very
much
happy if we had it.
for
I've seen
joining
people
us.
put
We
it
hope you have
like
the,
stuff in
the
their
merriest
bathtub and
of
wait.
Yeah,
holidays.
that
a
would
little
be.
bit-
I
we
would
hope that we get to
See,
see
I
you
would
again
want it as a
soon.
pet.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna keep
Merry
this little
Christmas.
guy.
see. That's where I would get the.